In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can get from level 1 to 2,550 in 1 week for free. And the very first thing that you need to do on your journey is know the difference between fruits that are meant for grinding and fruits that are meant for PvP. This is an extremely important difference, and the quicker you learn it, the better. Let me give you two quick examples. First up, we got the magma fruit, which is a rare fruit that costs 960,000 belly. And on the other hand, we got the kitsune fruit, which is considered the best and most expensive fruit in the whole game, and it costs 8 million belly. Just look at this price difference for a second. The kitsune fruit costs more than 8 times what the magma fruit costs. And overall, the kitsune fruit is incredibly overpowered because you can just tell by its price. The first ability of the kitsune fruit is its normal attack, which has an M1 click, and the magma fruit actually does not have an M1 attack. The Z ability is called Cursed Enchantment, where you just shoot a bunch of energy towards your enemy. The X ability is called Tales of Burning Agony, where you kind of just zip bullets and shoot it at your enemy. Then we got the C ability, which is called Foxfire Disruption, where you just shoot a massive projectile at your enemy. And then the B ability is the Transformation, where you actually turn into a kitsune. Then we got the F ability, which is called Wind Assault. This is a movement ability as well as a damage ability. But one thing about all of these abilities is that most of them are suited towards PvP, which means it isn't ideal for grinding. And everyone knows when you're trying to get levels in the game, you obviously want to be focusing more on grinding than PvP. It just makes more sense. Now let's take a look at the magma fruit. The first ability of the magma fruit is called Magma Clap. Pretty terrible. It's also a single target ability. Then we got Magma Eruption, and this also looks pretty bad. Then we got the C ability, which is Magma Fist, which isn't that bad, but it is still overall not that good of an ability. Then we finally got the B ability, which is Magma Meteors, which is the only decent ability of the Unawakened magma fruit. Then we got the F ability, which is called Magma Floor, and overall just a pretty terrible ability. Now one thing I did not tell you about the magma fruit is that it actually has an awakening, which means you can basically just upgrade all of its abilities by awakening the fruit. The upgraded version of the Z ability looks like this. It's called Magma Shower. Just look at how overpowered it is, and you can just see by the ability that it does area damage, which already makes it better than the kitsune fruit's first ability. And the magma fruit actually does the most damage in the game if you count the damage that the puddle leaves over. You're gonna notice that most of the magma fruit's abilities leave behind this huge magma blob, and if your enemy actually stands in them, then they continue taking a butt ton of damage, even more from the original strike that they received. The next ability is called Volcanic Assault, and this is the only ability of the Awakened magma fruit that's actually not area damage. Then we got the C ability, and this is called Great Magma Hound, where you just shoot out a huge magma blob that deals a lot of damage. Then we got the V ability called Volcanic Storm, which literally just decimates your enemy. Just look at how powerful this is. Then we got F ability, which just looks like a normal movement ability which you can ride on, but once you're done using this movement ability, you can actually launch it as a projectile towards your enemy. And on top of this, you also get immunity to lava, so if you're grinding at any island where there's lava, you can just completely decimate your enemies. And on top of that, this fruit is actually an elemental fruit, which means if your enemy is actually a lower level than you, then they won't be able to do any damage to you, unless they have Haki, of course. So now that you've looked at both fruits, tell me which one is better for grinding. It's obviously the magma fruit. Just look at how overpowered it is. The kitsune fruit is obviously overpowered in its own right, but it is meant a lot more for PvP. So if I was trying to win a 1v1 against someone, then I would obviously choose the kitsune fruit. But if I'm trying to get to max level as fast as possible, then I'm obviously going to be choosing the magma fruit. Anyways, let's move on to this next trick that's going to help you a butt ton to gain levels. But this is only for people that have just literally launched the game and stepped foot at the first island. Instead of farming NPCs at the first island, just head over to Fountain City and just glitch an enemy behind a wall and start pummeling them to death. And if you do this glitch correctly, they actually won't be able to do any damage to you, so you can destroy them without them even hitting you. And you can get a butt ton of levels, and I recommend doing this like once or twice, and then you can head to the designated island. And doing this trick, you basically just get to skip 2 or 3 islands, which is really overpowered. Next up, I'm going to be telling about some fruits that you want to keep your eye out for. Buy them as fast as possible. The first fruit I got here is the light fruit. The light fruit is an overpowered fruit for grinding because it actually has a passive ability called the light sword. And the light sword does exactly what it sounds like. It's literally just a free sword which kind of just comes with the fruit. And when you upgrade your stat points, you don't need to put any stat points into your sword. You can just put it into fruit and this sword will just continue doing damage. It's actually better than some swords in the game. It's not the best, obviously, because that would be way too overpowered, but it is still a pretty decent sword. Which means once you spam all your abilities and run out of using them, then you can just spam this sword. And this is actually one of the fruits that helped me the most. And on top of that, it has the best movement ability in the whole game, Light Flight, which just lets you zip across islands. But the portal fruit is still better in that regard. Anyways, let's take a look at this next fruit. It's the ice fruit. And just like the light fruit, this also has a passive ability called the Ice Trident. Just like the light sword, this is also a sword that you can use without upgrading any sword stat points. And on top of that, you can also use its abilities. And even this ice fruit also has an awakening. That just shows you how overpowered it is. And the next fruit I got here is the magma fruit, and you obviously want to keep your eye out for this for the same reasons I mentioned at the start of the video. It's just really overpowered for grinding. The next fruit, which is extremely underrated, is the smoke fruit. The smoke fruit is really overpowered for grinding, and it's honestly the best budget fruit that you can get in the first seed. And since this is for people that are just starting the game, this is going to help you a butt ton, so make sure you get your hands on it as soon as possible. It's the cheapest elemental fruit, and everyone knows elemental fruits are really overpowered for grinding. And the smoke fruit has one ability in specific that makes it really overpowered, and that is the smoke bomber ability. This basically just lets you fly above your enemy and drop smoke bombs on them, and they won't be able to do any damage to you unless they obviously have a gun, but that is extremely rare. But the downside to this is that it takes a lot of time to kill your enemy because the smoke bombs actually drop pretty slow. But if you're someone that doesn't like to PvP or is extremely bad at it, then I just recommend equipping this food because all you have to do is hold your F key and you're just going to be destroying your enemies. The next thing I'm going to be telling you about is Haki. This is an extremely important thing that all new players should be getting their hands on. And the reason for that is because it basically just multiplies the damage that you do. And to get this, it's extremely simple. All you have to do is head over to the snow island on the first sea, head into this cave over here and talk to the abilities teacher who just looks like Rayleigh from One Piece. Once you talk to him, he's going to sell you the Haki ability for a total of 25,000 bellies. He's also going to sell you 2 other abilities, but they aren't as important in my opinion because if you have to choose one from this teacher, I recommend this one. It is extremely overpowered. And it's actually necessary later because you're going to be fighting against enemies that have elemental fruits and you won't be able to hit them unless you have this ability. But anyways, let's talk about the Haki stages. The first stage of the Haki is when it covers your arms, and you need 0 XP for this. It's the base stage and increases your non-Blox foot attacks by a total of 10%. Next up, we got the full arms Haki, and this increases your non-foot attacks by 21%. Then we got the full arms as well as the upper torso, and this basically just decreases all the damage you take by 10%. So Haki isn't only good for attacks, it actually helps you defend from attacks as well. And there's no drawback to leaving it on. It doesn't even use any XP, so I just recommend having equipped it 24/7. For the next stage of the Haki, this is going to be covering your full arms as well as the upper torso and the head, and this decreases the damage you take by 18%. The next stage of Haki covers your full arms, torso, head, and half of your legs, and this decreases all damage you take by 25%. Next up, we got the full body Haki, and this decreases the damage you take by 30%, which is incredibly overpowered. Anyways, now I'm going to be telling you about how to max out your Haki overnight, and this is extremely simple and literally anybody can do it. All you have to do is obviously turn on your Haki, buy the worst sword in the game, head over to the spawn point of any enemy that does not have Haki, equip an elemental fruit, make sure you're standing on your spawn point, and just leave an auto clicker on overnight. And by the time you wake up, you're going to have max Haki. The reason this works is because the way your Haki levels up actually depends on the amount of times you hit your enemy with it. Anyways, let's move on to the next trick. This next fruit I'm going to be telling you about is considered the best grinding fruit in the whole game by the whole community because, well, it's just completely broken. I'm obviously talking about the Buddha fruit. This fruit costs a total of 1,200,000 belly, and its abilities are completely useless. Well, everything except for its transformation ability. There's the ability where it just makes you transform into a huge Buddha and you're going to be glowing yellow. The reason you wouldn't be using this fruit, even though the rest of its abilities are useless, is because the Buddha fruit actually increases the distance you can hit people at. And this is incredibly overpowered for grinding because if you pair this with a fighting style or with a sword, you can basically just destroy your enemies without them even being able to touch you. Because with the Buddha fruit, you can actually hit them 8 times further than you normally can. And that's literally the only reason this is overpowered. And the devs have left the fruit like this for the whole duration of the game, so I don't think they'll be updating or changing this fruit anytime soon. But there's always that 1% chance, so if you have an opportunity to get this fruit, I recommend taking it immediately. And not to mention, this fruit also has an awakening, which isn't really that important because it doesn't actually increase the distance you can hit people. It kind of just makes your transformation cooler. So if you want to be awakening your fruit, then you should probably just be doing it for looks. Anyways, the next thing that I got here that you completely want to take advantage of is accessories. Accessories are really overpowered, so make sure you always have one equipped. And this one here is pretty easy to get and it works extremely well with the Buddha fruit. And the accessory I'm talking about is the Ghoul Mask. This is a rare accessory and it gives you plus 500 energy as well as 10% life leech on melee attacks against players and a 2.5% life leech against melee attacks against NPCs, as well as a 35% movement speed buff, and you get it from the El Perro NPC located at the second sea curse ship. You can buy for a total of 50 ectoplasm, which is a currency you can get by killing NPCs on that same ship. And the reason this accessory is overpowered is because when you have the Buddha fruit equipped, the only thing you're really looking for is speed, because you just want to get to your enemies as fast as possible to pummel them into the ground. And that's where this 35% movement speed is going to help you a butt ton, as well as the plus 500 energy, so you can be dashing to every enemy you want to go to. And also the 2.5% life leech makes it so you regenerate damage that you take by dealing damage to your enemies, which is incredibly overpowered. Another thing that's extremely important I'm going to be telling you about is choose one grinding style and don't change it, because when you choose a fighting style and actually keep dealing damage to people with it, you're going to notice this mastery level goes up, and as the mastery keeps going up, that actually makes it so the damage you deal from this fighting style actually increases. So if you keep switching fighting styles, then you're going to be losing a lot of damage that you could potentially earn. And when you're in the first heat, the fighting style I recommend you getting your hands on is the water kung fu fighting style. You get it by heading over to Underwater City and talking to this NPC located behind the secret wall. And the reason water kung fu is really overpowered is because it actually has no delay between its M1 attacks, so that makes it the best fighting style for grinding. And later on you can upgrade it to Sharkman Karate, which is basically just the same thing, but it just deals a lot more damage. The next overpowered trick I'm going to be telling you about is the server hop bosses. Everyone knows that when you're on the boss quest in Blox, you can only fight them every now and then. Bosses in the game usually take like 20 minutes to respawn, which means you won't be able to grind them as efficiently as possible unless you want to keep buying respawn bosses every 5 seconds. In my opinion, that is not worth it. A way to kind of do this for free is just by server hopping, and the way you do that is by clicking the server's icon right here and choosing a server that has space for you. But once you join a new server, there should be a pretty high chance that the boss is still alive on this server, so instead of grinding NPCs normally, I just recommend server hopping the bosses. Everyone knows about races and Blox fruit, but did you wonder what the best race for grinding is? Well, this one's actually pretty easy. It is the ghoul race, but an unfortunate thing about this is that you actually cannot spawn in as the ghoul race and you cannot naturally change to it. There's an extremely specific way to get it, and the way you do that is by getting 100 ectoplasm, and like I mentioned before, you can get this by killing NPCs at the curse ship on the second sea. Once you do that, you can fight the cursed captain who can drop your hellfire torch, who spawns every third night at that same ship. Once you meet all these requirements, you can talk to the experimentric NPC who's found at the middle of the kitchen inside that same cursed ship. And once you give him the 100 ectoplasm as well as the hellfire torch, he's gonna let you change your race to ghoul. And the ghoul race is extremely overpowered for grinding just because of how its abilities work. In the stage 1 of its abilities, it slightly increases your regenerations, which means if you take damage from NPCs, you pretty much heal it back faster. And also increases your run speed by 30% during night. And if you want to be really competitive about this, you can just server hop into new servers just so it stays nighttime forever. And you also get visual changes during the stage, which gives you a pair of horns on your head. The V2 basically just gives you a life leech ability, which is the same as that accessory I mentioned from before. This basically just lets you heal back 25% of the damage you do to other players, which is gonna help you a butt ton in PvP. But it's not the exact same with NPCs. You only heal back 5% for NPCs, which is still extremely good. Moving on to the V3, you unlock an ability called Heightened Senses, where it just buffs your overall player's damage by 5%, your speed by 10%, and your defense by 15%. And also makes it so you can use all of your moves 40% faster. This applies for guns, food, swords, and everything pretty much. And this ability lasts for a total of 8 seconds and has a 25-second cooldown. Anyways, moving to the V4, which you won't be getting until you enter the 3rd sea, so you shouldn't be paying too much attention to this. But once you transform, you're gonna basically receive max stats for everything, as well as increased damage, speed, and healing by 10%. And all of your attacks basically just gain life leech on NPCs that are weaker than you. And on the upgraded version, the life leech effect is increased greatly. You gain an ability called Domain Expansion, which I'm pretty sure is just Megumi's ability from Jujutsu Kaisen, but we don't talk about that. Basically, this ability gives you a dark circle around you, which basically just blinds your enemies and makes it so they cannot regenerate their health. And all of your nighttime passive abilities become available during the day. And all your cooldowns are reduced by 40%, just like your V3 ability. And in the upgraded version of this, when you dash, crows will basically just attack your nearby enemies, which is incredibly overpowered. And you also get a lot of visual changes. I mean, just look at how badass you look. Anyways, moving on from the races, I'm going to be talking about some game passes that you definitely want to get your hands on if you want to become a way better player. And the only game passes that I honestly recommend are the double money game pass as well as the double mastery game pass. Double money because you can just gain money twice as fast, which is going to help you buy fighting styles and pretty much anything you need. Then the double mastery game pass is just going to let you upgrade your fighting styles, swords, guns, and fruits a lot faster so you can deal way more damage with them. That's pretty much it. This is a secret accessory that only admins can use, and this is one that's no longer in the game. This is a complete guide to every accessory in Blox Fruit. Starting off, the very first accessory that we got here is the pink coat. This is an uncommon accessory which gives you plus 10% gun damage as well as plus 200 health, and you get this by defeating the swan boss who spawns in the prison in the 1st sea. Next up, we got the bandana, which comes in 3 different variants. This gives you 750 plus energy, 10% increase in your melee sword and gun damage, as well as an 80% movement speed boost, and you get this by defeating the elite pirates who spawn in random locations around the 3rd sea. But the one that you get is completely random, but I guess you can farm for them if you want a specific color. Next up, we got the barriers. This is a rare accessory that gives you plus 500 energy as well as 10% defense against all attacks, and you get this by rolling random surprises at the Death King at the haunted castle on the 3rd sea. Next up, we got the black cape, and you get this from an NPC called Paulus. This gives you plus 100 energy, plus 100 health, and plus 5% damage. And by the way, if you want to find him, the NPC is located at this tower in Marine Fortress. You just have to climb down the ladder. Next accessory that we got here is the black spiky coat. This is an accessory that gives you plus 200 energy as well as plus 200 health, as well as 7.5% increase in your overall damage. And you get this by defeating the Jeremy boss who's located at the Kingdom of Rose on the 2nd sea. Next up, we got the blue spiky coat, and this one gives you plus 500 energy, plus 250 health, as well as a 7.5% increase in damage. And you get this by defeating the cursed captain on the 2nd sea, and he's obviously located at the cursed ship. He only spawns every 3rd night, so it's gonna take a while if you want to grind for this. Next up, we got the Chopper hat, and this one is actually very cool because it's the same hat that Chopper from One Piece wears. It's a rare accessory that increases your Blox Fruit damage by 3% and gives you a 15% reduction with your Blox Fruit's ability. It also gives you a 10% defense against all Blox Fruit's attacks. So if you want this hat, make sure you get out there and farm some CB. Next up, we got the coat accessory, and the pretty cool thing about this accessory is that it actually looks different depending on whether you're a marine or a pirate, which is pretty cool. It gives you a 10% increase in your overall melee damage as well as plus 200 energy points, and you get this by defeating the vice admiral who's located at Marine Fortress in the 1st sea. He literally spawns on this big tower, and he's the only boss on the island, so you cannot miss him. Next up, we got the cool shades accessory. This is a rare accessory that gives you plus 100 energy, plus 100 health, and a 17.5 increase in your movement speed, and you get this by defeating the cyborg boss who's the strongest quest boss in the 1st sea, and you can find him at the Fountain City on the small island stuck to it. Next up, we got the elf hat accessory, and the pretty unique thing about this accessory is that you can no longer get it. It gives you a 10% increase in your melee and sword damage, as well as a 5% melee and sword attack cooldown reduction, and a 20% movement speed increase. The way you could have gotten it is by talking to the Santa Claus NPC. You would buy it for a total of 250 candies. Anyways, the next accessory that we got here is very useful to Buddha users, and this is the Ghoul Mask. This is a rare accessory, and you can get it from an NPC called El Perro, who's located at the curse ship in the second sea, and it costs 50 ectoplasm. This mask gives you a total of plus 500 energy, a 10% life leech on melee attacks against players, a 2.5% life leech on melee attacks against NPCs, as well as a 35% increase in your movement speed. Next up, we got the Golden Sun Hat, and this is a rare accessory that gives you a 500 increase in your health, as well as a 10% damage increase. And just like one of the accessories from before, you can get it by rolling random surprises at the Death King. Next up, we got the Hunter Cape, which also has 3 different variants, just like the bandana from before. This accessory gives you 750 health increase, a 10% increase for your melee, sword, and gun attacks, as well as an 80% movement increase. And you get this by defeating elite pirates, which spawn at random locations around the 3rd sea. The next accessory is the Jaw Shield, and this is actually the same accessory that one of Kaido's henchmen from One Piece uses, and it looks pretty accurate if you ask me. It gives you plus 500 energy, plus 250 health, a 12.5% increase in your melee damage, a 10% defense against all melee attacks, as well as a 50% increase in your movement speed. So you get it from an NPC called Takamura. Anyways, moving on, we got the Lei accessory, and you increase your health regeneration by 50%, which can be incredibly useful. And the way you get it is by defeating the Kilo Admiral, who's located at the Great Tree in the 3rd sea. The next accessory that we got here is the Marine Cap, and you can get it if you defeat a pirate as a Marine, but your honor has to also be over 250,000. This accessory increases your sword and gun damage by 7.5% and also decreases the cooldown on your sword and gun attacks. Next up, we got the Pilot Helmet, and this is the best accessory for speed in the whole game. It increases your movement speed by 130%, increases your health regeneration by 10%, and your energy and health by 250 stat points. Damn, talk about an overpowered accessory, and it literally turns you into the Flash. And the way you get it is by defeating the first boss in the 3rd sea, the Stone Boss, who's located behind Port Town. The next accessory that we got here is the Pretty Helmet. It increases your movement speed by 50%, your melee damage by 10%, a 12.5% defense against all melee attacks, and increases your energy by 250 and your health by 500 points. The next accessory that we got here is the Red Spiky Coat. This is a rare accessory and increases your damage by 7.5%, increases your energy by 250 points, and your health by 500. And the way you get it is by defeating the Cursed Captain, just like one of the accessories from before. Next up, we got the Santa Hat accessory, and just like the Elf Hat accessory from before, you can only get this during the Christmas event. This is a rare accessory that increases your movement speed by 30%, gives you a 12.5% damage increase towards your Blox food and your sword, as well as a 400 increase with your energy and a 400 increase with your health. Next accessory that we got here is the Shark Tooth Necklace. This is a rare accessory that makes you run 50% faster, increases your dash distance by 10%, and gives you a 25% damage increase for all sea events. And you can craft this at Tiki Outpost on the 3rd sea. Next up, we got the Swordsman Hat, and this is a rare accessory that gives you a 10% increase in your sword damage, and you can buy it from Hassan for a total of 150,000 belly. Not really worth it in my opinion, because in the 1st sea you can always save your money to buy way better stuff. Next up, we got the Tomo Ring, which increases your Blox food damage by 10%, and you can buy this from Yoshi, who's located at Skylands in the 1st sea, for a total of 500,000 belly. Next up, we got the Top Hat accessory. This is a rare accessory that increases your melee damage by 3%, decreases your skill cooldown by 10%, and increases your sword damage by 10%. And you can get this by defeating a sea beast, just like the Chopper hat from before. Next up, we got Usopp's Hat, and this increases your gun's damage by 7.5% and gives you a gun attack cooldown reduction by 15%. And the way you get this is by just defeating 3 players. Shouldn't be that hard to do if you have an IQ above 5. Next up, we got the Warrior Helmet. This is a rare accessory that increases your melee and sword damage by 12.5%. It also reduces the cooldown for your melee and sword attacks. And you get this by completing the Coliseum quest, who's located at the cafe in the Kingdom of Rose on the 2nd sea. Next up, we got Cupid's Coat, which is actually a legendary accessory, but you can only get this during the Valentine's event for 750 hearts. And this coat will give you 12.5% more damage on your Blox fruits and sword attacks, increasing your health by 600 and your energy by 400. It also gives you 8% defense against any attack. Next up, we got the DS Code, and this is a secret accessory that only admins have access to. It gives you a 5% increase for all of your damage, increases your energy by 200 and your health by 200. Not really sure why this is an admin ability because it doesn't even seem that overpowered to me. Next up, we got the Heart Shades, and this is also an accessory that you could only get during the Valentine's event. It's a legendary accessory and it increases your gun and melee damage by 12.5% and gives you a 5% defense for all of those attacks, and increases your energy by 600 and your health by 400. Next up, we got the Holy Crown accessory. This is another legendary accessory. It gives you a 5% increase for your damage, a 5% increase on your defense, and a 5% energy regeneration, as well as 500 energy and 500 health. And the way you get it is by defeating the Soul Reaper raid raid boss, which you can spawn in at the haunted castle by getting halo essence and placing it at the fountain on that island. Next up, we got the Kitsune mask. It increases your Blox food damage by 10%. It gives you 2 extra instinct dodges. It gives you a 15% regeneration on all your passive fruit meters. It also gives you 10% clearer vision and see danger level 6, as well as 750 health. And you obviously have to be on the Kitsune island. Next up, we got the Kitsune ribbon, and this is a legendary accessory that gives you a 10% increase for your Blox food damage, a 15% increased health regeneration, 30% increase in your movement speed, a +7 dash distance, and a 25% reduction on your flash step, as well as 2500 energy, making it the most overpowered accessory for energy. How is that even fair? Next up, we got the Leviathan crown. This increases your melee damage by 12%, your damage to C-vents by 35%, your health regeneration by 25%, a 40% C-vent material drop chance, as well as 1 extra instinct dodge. And to craft this, you need 1 dark fragment, 10 Leviathan scales, as well as 5 electric wings, which are all extremely difficult to get. Next up, we got the Musketeer hat, which is yet another legendary accessory, and this increases your sword and gun damage and reduces the cooldown for its abilities. And you can get this after completing the Citizen's Quest. Next up, we got the Pale Scarf accessory. This increases your Blox food and sword damage by 15%. It gives you 2 extra instinct dodges and increases your instinct vision range by 10 times. That literally makes you see the whole world. Not really, but you can see extremely far with this. Next up, we got the Swan glasses, and these increase your movement speed by 25%, your overall damage by 8%, your skills cooldown by 8%, increasing your defense by 8%, and it gives you 250 energy as well as 250 health. Next up, we got the Terror Jaw accessory, and it gives you a 10% increase on your sword damage, a 10% skill cooldown reduction, a 20% defense against all sea events, as well as a 200 health and energy increase. And you get this from the Shark Hunter at Tiki Outpost. Next up, we got the Valkyrie Hammond, and this is actually an old accessory that Rip Indra used to have on his avatar until he changed it. It increases your sword damage by 15%, and it also increases your energy and health by 600 points. Damn, that is a huge increase. And you can only get this after defeating the Rip Indra raid boss at the castle on the sea. Next up, we got the Zebra Cap, and you get this by defeating the Order boss, who you can spawn in at the second sea. This increases your sword damage by 10%, decreases the cooldown on your Blox food abilities by 15%, increases your energy by 500 and your health by 100. Next up, we got the Dark Coat, and it gives you a +600 energy as well as +600 health. It also gives you a 15% increase in your Blox food damage. Next up, we got the Holiday Cloak. This is yet another mythical accessory that increases your Blox food damage by 10% and also gives you 1 extra instinct dodge. You could only get during a special event. Next up, we got the Leviathan Shield, one of the most overpowered accessories in the whole game. Increases your defense against all melee, sword, and gun attacks by 15%, gives you a 30% defense against sea events, and gives you a 90% protection against water damage. And it also increases your health by 1000. And the way you can get this accessory is by crafting it from the Beast Hunter NPC. Next up, we got the Party Hat accessory, and this gives you a 10% increase in your experience, a 10% increase in your mastery, as well as 400 energy and 400 health. And this is actually the only accessory in the game that lets you level up and increase your mastery fast. And you can only get this during the confetti event, and I don't think they're ever going to add this back. In this video, I'm going to be telling you about some first team mistakes that all the new players make. So if you're in the first team, make sure you do not make these mistakes. And the very first mistake I got on this list is not abusing server hop. Server hopping is a very easy method that's going to help you gain a lot of XP extremely fast. Once you finish killing a boss or whatever you want to server hop, you simply have to click the icon right here that says servers and join a new server. Make sure you choose a server that's not full, or else you're going to have to retry this a bunch of times. But it should take a maximum of literally 1 minute. And speaking of servers, the next mistake that a lot of people make is not abusing free private servers. In Blox, you have to pay a certain amount of Robux to get a private server. But there's actually a way to get private servers completely for free. Head over into Roblox, and then you have to click on servers right before you join Blox. You have to change the filter system to ascending. It's going to show you the servers with the least amount of people, and usually there's only 1 person in the server, and 99% of the time is usually AFK. So once you join the server, you're going to have a completely free server all to yourself, and you can literally even invite your friends. Just make sure you don't invite too many people, because then a bunch of randoms are going to start joining the server, because I guess that's how the Blox code works. The next mistake I see a lot of people making is always following the quest guide. What I mean by the quest guide is the recommended quest that the compass gives you, and I'm telling you that this is not a very good idea, because that's not the most efficient way to gain XP. Let me give you an example real quick. Look at the pirate village that's on the first sea. If you take a look at the pirates over here, they're very close to the quest giver, like literally like 2 meters away from them, and there's a total of 4 of them that spawn in this location, which means they're very easy to group up if you have guns. Next up, let's take a look at the brutes. Look how far away they spawn from the quest giver, and look how far they're separated from each other. Even if you reach the level recommendation for them, I recommend still doing the pirates quest just because of how easy they are to group up and kill. And also not to mention that the brutes are way stronger than the pirates, so the pirates are incredibly easy to defeat while the brutes are kind of difficult, especially if you're a lower level player. Moving on to the next mistake, I see a lot of people doing this wrong, and that is leveling up your Haki the wrong way. Everyone knows the default way to level up Haki, and this is the mistake that everybody makes. You kind of just go around with your Haki turned on and you hit your enemies, but there's a way to do it literally overnight. But for this, you need an elemental fruit. Once you equip an elemental fruit, you need to get a sword that's the lowest level possible. And most of you already have the katana or the cutlass, so I recommend going back to the first island and getting the opposite sword that you bought. So if you bought a katana, I recommend getting a cutlass, and if you bought a cutlass, I recommend getting a katana. The reason you want to do this is because the lower the level of your weapon, the way easier this trick is going to be. Head over to the spawn point of any enemy in the game that does not have Haki. So obviously you can't do bosses, and you can't do these guys at Fountain City. You have to be a higher level than the enemy you want to do this with. Make sure you're standing exactly on your spawn point and leave an auto clicker on. And obviously turn on your Haki. And the way you level up your Haki actually depends on how many times you hit your enemy, not how much damage you do to them. So by taking advantage of this, and if you leave your auto clicker on overnight, you should literally wake up to max Haki. This is really overpowered, so make sure you take advantage of this. The next thing I see a lot of people doing is grinding the wrong way. And this is kind of situational because it actually depends heavily on whether you have friends that play the game. If you don't have any friends, then this trick isn't really for you, but if you do, make sure you get them online. And usually if you're in the first year, friends should be a higher level than you, so get them to help you out while fighting NPCs. Ask your friend to get an NPC down to around 90% of their health, and if you do the rest of the 10% of damage, then that literally counts as a kill. Just make sure it's nothing under 10% because then it won't count as a kill. I made this mistake with bosses. I used to get my friends to help me out and they would leave the boss one hit, but that does not work. They need to have at least 10% of their health remaining, so make sure you get that part right. It's incredibly important. The next thing I see a lot of people using wrong is the Portal Fruit's X ability. There's actually two different ways to use it. The first way is the traditional way, literally just using the X ability, blip into another dimension and come back where you want. But did you know that if you stand incredibly still and actually use the Portal Fruit's X ability and you don't move at all, then there's actually a glitch in the game which makes it so you're completely invisible for the whole time. Even after your ability ends, no one will be able to see you. I guess this is a good way to escape a fight, but I'm pretty sure they can still hit you. You're just invisible, so make sure you use it in the correct spot. The next mistake I see a lot of people making is choosing the wrong fighting style in the first seed. Everyone knows that there's three main fighting styles: Dark Step, Electric, and Water Kung Fu. The Dark Step fighting style is an incredibly cheap fighting style. It's literally the first fighting style that you can buy. It costs a total of 150,000 belly and has a total of 4 different abilities with a transformation. And since it's the cheapest, it's not really a good fighting style, so you don't really want to be getting your hands on this. Its abilities are more suited towards PvP than actually grinding, so there's no real point if you're looking to level up. But if you're looking to PvP, then I guess you can get your hands on this. Moving on to the next fighting style, it's the Electric fighting style. This costs a total of 500,000 belly, and this fighting style has 3 different abilities. And just like the Dark Step fighting style, this is also suited more towards PvP. It's not really something you want to be using for leveling up. The final fighting style that's in the first seed is Water Kung Fu, and this is definitely the fighting style that you want to get your hands on. I know it's the most expensive and you're gonna have to do a bit of saving for it, but I definitely recommend getting it just because of how overpowered it is for grinding. This is the only fighting style in the game that does not have a delay between its M1 attacks, and that's something you really want to take advantage of when you're grinding. Which brings me to my next point. Once you get Water Kung Fu, you can actually upgrade it to Sharkman Karate later on, which is the strongest fighting style in the game for grinding. So you literally have no reason to not get this fighting style. Another huge mistake I see people making is for people that have bought permanent fruits with Robux, and I'm actually one of these people, and I was making this mistake for like a whole year while playing this game. When you have a fruit permanently equipped, you actually don't need to go over to the Blox fruit dealer to equip it. You can literally equip it any time, no matter where you are, by accessing the shop directly. So I'm not really sure why I kept going to the Blox fruit dealer, and it made me take way more time to record my videos because I had to just keep going back and forth every time I wanted to equip the new fruit. Thank God I know this now so I can make videos faster for you guys. The next mistake that people make is not abusing the Flash Step ability. You literally buy it from the Rayleigh NPC who's located in this cave on the Ice Village. And there's actually 2 ways to abuse Flash Step. The first way is literally just for movement. I'm pretty sure 99% of players use it for this. The second way actually lets you glitch through things, like glitch out of buildings that have very weird exits. It might be a bit hard to learn with the angles at first, but once you get good at it, you can literally just spam the crap out of it. And if you want to use Flash Step even better, make sure you equip the human race because it reduces the cooldown. The next mistake I see people making is eating mythical fruits. The rarities for fruits in this game do not matter. Trust me on this one, guys. Let me give you an example of a rare fruit that's actually better than a mythical fruit. First, the mythical fruit I'm talking about is the control fruit. It's literally the one Law uses. You just spawn in a big bubble and you're basically just God mode inside that bubble. You can levitate stuff, throw it at your enemies. You can use the echo knife, which literally just spams the crap out of them and they can't even dodge it. You can also use the gamma rush ability, where you hit them with like a 10x combo, incredibly crazy, and you can also basically just teleport inside it. But there's actually a fruit that's way better than this fruit. Even though the control fruit is literally one of the coolest fruits in the game, and in my opinion, it's probably the coolest fruit because, I mean, just look at it. The concept is just amazing. The fruit that I'm talking about that's better is a rare fruit. It's literally the light fruit and it only costs 650,000 belly, and it's way easier to be in stock at the Blox fruit dealer. It's actually an elemental fruit. It has an awakening which you can unlock for 14,500 fragments. It also has a passive ability. You basically get a sword with this. Literally, look at how overpowered that is. And the abilities in general are just better because you don't need to spawn in a whole bubble to use them. And if you're looking to level up, the light fruit is definitely better because it's one of the best grinding fruits in the whole game. The light fruit also has the fastest movement ability in the whole game. Control fruit can't even compete. For leveling up, the control fruit might honestly be one of the worst fruits you can use. Anyways, moving on, the next mistake I see people make is leveling up their Buddha fruit. And what I mean by this is not leveling up with the Buddha fruit, it's leveling up the Buddha fruit itself. You literally have no reason to do this because the only reason you want to be using the Buddha fruit is for its increased range. So if you're using the Buddha fruit and its abilities like normal and trying to level it up, trust me, you do not want to be doing that. Its abilities are completely useless. Just stop, please. Use the Buddha fruit normally.
Okay.
Anyways, moving on, the next mistake I see people making is doing high level bosses early just for boss drops. And I know it might be cool to get some boss drops, like maybe getting the glasses from the cyborg boss in the first sea is cool and all, but keep in mind he's the strongest boss in the whole of the first sea. So if you're like a level 10 player, you do not want to be fighting this boss. But if you're really confident in yourself and you have a high level food or a really overpowered fighting style, then I guess you can try the challenge. But don't challenge yourself too hard because you're gonna die. The next thing that you don't want to be doing is storing your fruits. There's actually reasons that this is a good thing and a bad thing. If you just pick up a fruit and instantly store it, and it's a fruit that you already have or a fruit that you wanted to give to your friend, it's not a very smart thing because you can't really unstore your fruit. The only way you can give it to your friend then is by trading it. Then your friend has to trade another fruit that's worth similar value. But storing fruits can be a good thing if you do it with fruits that you actually need or plan on using later, or fruits that you obviously want to trade. That's pretty much it. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a complete guide to belly in Blox fruits, including every single way you can obtain it. Starting off, belly is the very main currency in the whole of Blox fruits, out of the 3 different ones. It's literally used for a majority of things in the games, like buying fighting styles, swords, guns, Blox fruits, accessories, abilities, and raid chips. It's literally the most important thing in the whole game. And since it's the most important, it's also way easier to get than fragments and valor. But that also means that prices for belly that you need to pay is usually way higher than the other currencies. And another thing that you might have not known is that there's actually a maximum amount of money that a player can hold, and that is 1 billion belly. I thought you guys are going to be getting your hands on that much. Well, if you do, then I guess you're the richest player in Blox fruits. Anyways, the very first way that you can get your hands on a butt ton of cash is by defeating NPCs. I'm very sure you guys know what NPCs are in Blox fruits, and they're incredibly easy to defeat. You literally just need to walk around and punch them in the face. But keep in mind, the lower the level, the less they drop. So if you want more money, you have to fight enemies that are way more powerful. And just like defeating NPCs, bosses are also included in this. But the difference is that bosses drop a lot more belly. Take the cyborg boss in the first sea, for example. When you kill the cyborg boss, he drops a total of 20,000 belly. But if you compare that to the very first boss in the first sea, the Gorilla King, he only drops 2,000 belly. That's literally 10 times more belly. And more importantly than NPCs and bosses, quests are also an incredibly easy way to get your hands on some cash really fast, because that's actually how you obtain the money from killing these NPCs. If you don't have the quest equipped, then you're actually not going to get your hands on any of the money. The very first quest in the game is for the bandits at the Pirate Starter Island, and this gives you a total of 350 belly. And once you work your way all the way to the strongest NPC in the Galley Pirates, you get literally 10,000 for completing a quest. And to finish the quest, you have to kill a total of 7 of them, so it's pretty difficult to do, and they're a lot more powerful. That's the reason they give you a lot more belly. And quests are actually the most important part of Blox fruits because that's actually how you level up. If you don't do quests, then you won't get as much XP as you're meant to. This is honestly the most efficient way to get belly because you can be leveling up to get to max level, and you can get your hands on a butt ton of cash. But there are a butt ton of faster methods, so make sure you watch to the end of this video. Another way you can get your hands on some cash really fast is by using the chest method. The chest method is literally a method that anybody can do no matter what your level is. And so let me tell you about it. There's a lot of different types of chests in Blox fruits. Firstly, the most common chest in the game is the silver chest, and in the first seed, this is going to give you around 250 belly to 420 belly. In the second seed, this is going to give you 500 to 1000 belly, and in the third seed, this is going to give you 1695 belly. And these take around 3 minutes to respawn, so you can farm these pretty fast compared to the other chests. The next type of chest that we got here is the golden chest, and this chest gives you a total of 600 to 1100 belly. In the second seed, it gives you 2300 to 3100, and in the third seed, it gives you 3800 to 5200 belly. Damn, that's a butt ton of belly. But unlike the silver chest, this takes 6 whole minutes to respawn, so you're gonna have to wait quite a while. Next up, we got the diamond chest, and these ones give you 1500 to 3000 belly in the first seed. In the second seed, they give you 5000 to 7000, and in the third seed, they give you a whopping 8000 to 12000 belly. But they do take 12 minutes to respawn. And these are the 3 types of chests in the game that can give you belly. We also got chests for other things like bones and fragments, but we aren't really talking about that right now. And the cool thing about this chest method is that if you actually learn the spawn points of all the chests, then you can actually server hop. By server hopping, crafting, you can basically reduce the amount of time it takes to respawn the chest to literally 0 minutes. So instead of waiting 3 minutes or even 12 minutes, you can get it in literally a matter of seconds. All you have to do is server hop. That's why I recommend learning where the chest spawn. And an island I recommend for this is the pirate village, because the chest spawn spots are incredibly easy to memorize. Literally just follow exactly what I do. There's a chest right here, there's a chest right here, there's a chest right here, and boom. All you gotta do is server hop. The next easy way you can get your hands on belly is by using the raids method, and this is only something that you unlock once you enter the second sea, but it's a really good way to get your hands on some belly. Everyone knows how raids work, but in case you don't, you have to head over to this huge building right here, enter the code green blue red blue, and a secret door should open up here. Once you climb up the ladder, you can talk to the scientist, and you can pay him a butt ton of cash, or you can pay him a fruit. And since this video is how to get your hands on belly, you don't want to be wasting belly to get your hands on even less belly. That just doesn't make any sense. So you want to trade in a physical fruit. Once you do that, you're gonna get a basic raid microchip, and I recommend choosing something really easy like the flame raid, because it's pretty easy to complete. Once you do that, all you have to do is head over to each island, and you just have to demolish the crap out of each enemy that's there. And then once you finish the raid, you should get your hands on a lot of belly, because every enemy drops a certain amount of belly, and the amount of belly that you get for each raid is actually slightly different, but some of them have the exact same. But one thing I forgot to mention is that the reason people do raids is to actually awaken their fruit. And if you complete these raids, and by the time you awaken your fruit, that's how much money you're gonna get. And that's the amount I'm gonna be telling you guys right now. For the flame raid, you're gonna get a total of 72,000 belly. For the ice raid, you're gonna also get the same amount. For the quake raid, it's also the exact same. For the light raid, you're gonna get 62,000 belly, so it's slightly less. For the dark raid, you're gonna get 68,000. For the spider raid, you're gonna get 65,000. For the rumble raid, you're gonna get 64,000. For the magma raid, you're gonna get 72,000. Same with the Buddha raid. For the sand raid, you're gonna get 64,000. For the door raid, you're gonna get 62,000. And for the phoenix raid, you're gonna get more than 1 million belly, just because it's a way harder raid. And the enemies are a lot stronger, which means they drop you a lot more stuff, which means they drop you a lot more money. And the reason that people mostly do raids is to awaken their fruits or to farm fragments, but you can also use it to get your hands on some belly. Another easy way that you can get your hands on some belly is by defeating a player from the player hunters quest. And this is a pretty specific quest because you have to be at least level 1500 to equip it. But once you finish the quest, you're gonna get a total of 20,000 belly. You can also complete the elite pirates quest to get your hands on some belly, but this does not give you that much. It only gives you 15,000 belly. But they do have a total of 3 different quests, so that's 15,000 belly 3 times, so it's a bit more than the previous quest, so it's honestly worth it in my opinion. Another way that you can get your hands on some belly, but this way I don't really recommend because it's gonna be incredibly difficult to do. You have to defeat a YouTuber that's in good standing with the Blox Foods community. That means you have to defeat someone that has the YouTuber title, and once you defeat them, you're gonna get your hands on a butt ton of belly. But then again, it's gonna be incredibly difficult to find a YouTuber, so good luck doing that. Man, if I had the YouTuber title, I'll let all my friends AFK farm the crap out of me. Another way that you can get your hands on some belly really quick is by farming CBs. CBs are incredibly powerful monsters that spawn from the waters of the second and the third sea. There's actually some conditions that have to be met before you spawn in a CBs. You simply have to be driving out in the water decently far away from all the islands. Once you do that, they have a decent chance of spawning. But before I tell you how much you get from these CBs, I'm going to tell you a really easy way to destroy the crap out of them. The first thing that you want to do, and this is the most important, you want to equip the awakened magma fruit. And if you don't have it, then you're kind of screwed. You have to look for some other good fruits. But this is honestly the best fruit in the whole game to destroy CBs. Next up, the race you want to be getting your hands on is the shark race. Obviously, because you're fighting in water, so you can swim around and dodge the crap out of all of the CBs attacks. But if you can't get those, some things I recommend getting are the leopard's M1 ability. But I'm specifically talking about the roar when you transform. Then we got the T-Rex's roar, you got the mammoth's M1 ability, you got explosive guns, obviously because you can hit them from really far away. Then we also got the rubber's M1 ability, and we also got the doe's M1 ability. These are all abilities that are honestly pretty good to use against CBs. And they're honestly not even like full abilities, they're like kind of side abilities because most of these are literally M1s. CBs have a lot of different attacks and they can do a lot of damage with those. The deadly shower attack that the CBs does can do up to 2,100 damage. The water beam can do up to 1,500 damage, and the deadly roar does up to 500 damage. That's incredibly difficult to fight against. So make sure you have a lot of accessories and literally get yourself buffed to the max. And the amount of HP the CBs has actually depends on the amount of players that are next to it when it spawns. If there's only one player, then it's gonna have a total of 100,000 HP. If there's 2 players, it's gonna have 125,000 HP. If there's 3 players, it's gonna have 150,000 HP. And if there's 4 players, it's gonna have a whopping 175,000 HP. Imagine you and 3 of your friends go to fight a CBs. Then once it spawns in, your friends just go AFK. Then you literally have to fight against the CBs that has 175,000 HP by yourself. But I'm sure some pro players could do that. Not me though, I'm not that good. The CBs is gonna give you a total of 60,000 to 250,000 belly when you kill it in the second sea. But keep in mind, there's also things called CB storms. So sometimes the CBs can drop more because there's literally more CBs that spawn. It's not just one. In the third sea, it gives you the same amount, but it actually gives you less fragments and more valor for some reason. But keep in mind, the amount of belly that the CBs actually drops you completely depends on your level. So if you're a higher level, then you should be getting more belly from these CBs. The next way that you can get your hands on some money really quick is by just buying them with Robux. And this method is not really recommended because why would you buy it with Robux? That just makes no sense. Another way you can get your hands on some belly is by getting money gifted to you from another player. And to get this to happen to you, you might have to trade in some fruits as well. It's not really logical for someone to just give you a butt ton of cash for free. Another way to get your hands on some belly is by taking a bounty hunter poster as a marine and then hunting down the pirate. This is honestly a really good method, and I only recommend using this method if you've literally finished the game and reached max level, because at that point you have nothing better to do. If you're a lower level, you also want to be focusing on leveling up, so I recommend using the quest method for that. And for all of these methods, I recommend server hopping, especially for the chest method, because it's incredibly easy for the chest to respawn. And for the bosses method, you can also server hop them, because bosses take up to 20 minutes to respawn, and you don't want to be waiting 20 minutes just to kill them again. And if you're really serious about getting your hands on a butt ton of belly, then I recommend getting the double money game pass. It literally does exactly what it sounds like. It doubles all the money you get from literally anything that you kill, and it costs a total of 450 belly. And in the long run, that honestly might be worth it, depending on how much you're willing to grind. And if you want to buy belly from the shop, I'm going to tell you the prices just in case. But keep in mind, I do not recommend this method unless you're literally a millionaire in real life. For 10,000 belly, you can get that for 50 Robux. For 50,000 belly, you can get that for 200 Robux. For 135,000 belly, you can get that for 500 Robux. For 300,000 belly, you can get that for 1,000 Robux. And for 500,000 belly, you can get that for 1,500 Robux. That's pretty much it. In this video, I'm going to be telling you about every single elemental fruit in Blox Fruit. I'm pretty sure most of you watching should already know how elemental fruits work. They're basically fruits that don't let people hit you unless they have Haki or they're a higher level than you. And a pretty cool thing about these fruits are that they are actually called low gear fruits in One Piece, but they had to rename because of copyright. But overall in the game, elemental fruits are probably one of the best types of fruits you can get your hands on because they're really good for grinding. So on your grinding journey, I definitely recommend using an elemental fruit for the first seed. But anyways, let's talk about the fruits themselves. The very first elemental fruit that I got here is the smoke fruit, and this is a fruit that costs a total of 100,000 belly or 250 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. This is the weakest elemental fruit in the game, but that does have its pros because it costs pretty much nothing compared to the other elemental fruits. This fruit was added on January 16, 2019, and it's been in the game for quite some time now. But anyways, let's get into the abilities of the fruit. The very first ability we got here is called Smoke Slam, where you basically just slam the floor with smoke and deal a decent amount of damage. Then we got the X ability, which is called Smoke Blast, and for this one you just shoot out a huge smoke projectile. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called Smoke Liberation, where you literally just shoot out smoke all around you, dealing damage to everything you're standing next to. Next up we got the F ability, and this one is called Smoke Bomber, where you fly into the sky and just drop a bunch of smoke bombs under you. Overall, this fruit is really good because it's a really nice budget fruit, which means pretty much anyone can get it. You just have to save up a little bit. But the bad things are that honestly the range for this fruit is not very good, and it's really easy to dodge all its abilities. But then again, you're only using this as an elemental fruit, then it doesn't really matter how good the fruit itself is. Anyways, the next fruit that I got here is the flame fruit, and this is the first uncommon fruit on this list. It costs a total of 250,000 belly or 550 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. And this fruit costs more than double of what the smoke fruit costs, so you can see the huge increase in the price already. This fruit was actually added at the same time as the smoke fruit, literally when the game started, making it one of the oldest fruits in the whole game. And unlike the smoke fruit, the flame fruit actually does have an awakening, which means you can actually upgrade it to a much better stage than most of the other fruits. Anyways, let's talk about the abilities themselves. First up, we got the Z ability, and this one is called Fire Bullets. Then we got the X ability, which is called Burning Blast, where you shoot out a huge projectile. Then we got the C ability, which is called Fire Column. Then we got the V ability, which is called Flame Destroyer. This is basically just a spirit bomb, where you just charge up energy above you and then you throw it to where you aim. Then we got the F ability, where you just kind of fly around with fire particles behind you. Anyways, moving on to Awakened version, the Z ability is called Blue Fire Bullets, and it's the same ability, but the fire turns blue. Then we got the X ability, which changes into Prominence Burst, which is actually an ability from My Hero Academia that Endeavor or Dob uses. I can't remember which one. Then we got the C ability, which is called Flaming Vortex, making it bigger and it deals a lot more damage. Then we got the V ability, which changes into Hell's Core, which is basically, it stays the same ability, but it does deal a lot more damage. Then we got the F ability, which changes into Rocket Fly, which makes the flying ability a lot faster. Overall, this fruit is honestly really good, but it's kind of in the in-between of being a budget fruit and a good fruit. So I'm not really sure you have any reason to buy this fruit, because if you want to go for a cheap fruit, then you should probably go for the smoke fruit. And if you want a better fruit, then you should go for something way higher up on this list. The flame fruit is just kind of unrealistic, I guess. Anyways, the next fruit that we got here is the ice fruit. And this fruit costs a total of 350,000 belly or 750 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. And this fruit was also added at the very start of the game in January 16, 2019. But the ice fruit also has an awakening. But did you know that the ice fruit actually has two different passive abilities? The first passive ability is the Ice Trident, where you basically just get a free ice sword. The next passive ability is called Frostwalker. Anyways, let's move on to the actual abilities of this fruit. First up, we got the Z ability, and this one is called Ice Spears. Then we got the X ability, which is called Ice Surge, where you just shoot out this huge crystal. Then we got the C ability, which is called Ice Bird, where you can shoot a bird at a player and it freezes them for a couple of seconds. Then we got the V ability, which is the special move, where you just create a bunch of ice, freezing everything around you. Moving on to the Awakened versions of these abilities, the Z ability changes into Cold Storm, where you just create a storm that deals damage to everything around you. The X ability upgrades to look a lot cooler and bigger. Then we got the C ability, which changes into Frozen Dragon, where you literally just spawn into Ice Dragon. And you got the V ability, which changes into Absolute Zero, where you literally deal a butt ton of damage to everything around you and freeze the enemies for 2 seconds. When you awaken your fruit, you also unlock the F ability, which is called Ice Skating, where you can basically just ice skate literally anywhere you want. And it's honestly one of the best choices for a grinding fruit. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the Sand Fruit. This is an uncommon fruit that costs a total of 420,000 belly, or 850 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. This fruit was added July 7, 2019 in update 4. And just like the previous 2 fruits on this list, this fruit also does have an awakening. It also has a passive ability, but this one isn't really a good one. It just makes it so that you take more damage in water, which is pretty lore accurate, because everyone knows that in One Piece, Crocodile takes more damage to water. That's literally how Luffy defeats him. Anyways, let's get into the abilities themselves. The very first one that we got here is called Desert Sword. Then we got the X ability, which is called Desert Funeral, where you basically just full box someone in sand. Then we got the C ability called Sand Tornado, the B ability, which is called Heavy Sand. Then we got the F ability, which is called Sand Fly, which is literally the same as the Flame ability, but they just retextured it. Moving on to the Awakened abilities, the Z ability changes into Desert Blade. Then we got the X ability, which changes into Sand Coffin, where you just full box your enemy in sand. And we got the C ability, which changes into Sandstorm, where you just create a huge sand tornado that deals a lot of damage. Then we got the V ability, which changes into Deep Sand, which literally just upgrades the bullet that you shoot out, making it do a lot more damage. Then we got the F ability, which upgrades into Tornado Flight, which makes it so that you fly a lot faster. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit on this list is the Dark Fruit. This fruit costs a total of 500,000 belly, or 950 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. Just like a bunch of other fruits on this list, this was actually added to the game at the very start, literally in update 1. Can you even count that as an update? It's literally when the game started. The very first ability that we got here is called Dark Rocks. Then we got the X ability, which is called Dark Spiral, where you create a miniature black hole. Then we got the C ability, which is called Black Hole, where you create a black hole on the floor, which doesn't really make sense. In my opinion, the X ability should have been named Black Hole. And we got the B ability, which is called Dark Bomb, where you just charge up a huge darkness ball, and once the ball explodes, it creates a mini black hole. Anyways, moving on to the awakened version of the abilities. The X ability is called Dimensional Slash, where you just literally shoot out a slash that deals damage to everything in its path. And this is actually from the Black Clover anime. It's what Yami uses. Next up, we got the X ability called Abyssal Darkness, where you just shoot out a bunch of darkness vines that deal damage to everything that they hit. Then we got the C ability, which changes into Endless Hole, where you just create a button of darkness around you and it deals damage to everything that it touches. And it also expands the more that you hold the ability key. Next up, we got the V ability, and this one is called World of Darkness, where you just charge up a huge black hole and throw it to wherever you want. Next up, we got the F ability, and this one is called Ghastly Step. And this is basically just a flash step that's retextured. And honestly, this is one of the most useless movement abilities in the whole game, because you already have a flash step. Why do you need a second one? I guess it helps you travel faster, but it's just not cool. You just have the same ability twice. Anyways, the next fruit that we got here is pretty similar to the Ice Fruit. It's the Light Fruit. This fruit costs a total of 650,000 belly, or 1,100 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. This also has a passive sword ability. And just like the Ice Fruit, this also does have an awakening. First up, we got Divine Arrow, where you just charge up a bow and shoot out a butt ton of projectiles. Then we got Hand of the Emperor, where you just beam the crap out of your enemies. Then we got the C ability, which is called Lightspeed Destroy, where you just zip around your enemy and slam straight into them. Then we got the V ability, which upgrades into Wrath of God, where the meteors deal a lot more damage. Then we got the F ability, which changes into Shining Flight. This is an incredibly fast movement ability, literally the fastest in the whole game, where you can actually change the direction of your flying with the Light Fruit. Moving on from the Light Fruit, we got the Magma Fruit, and this is honestly one of the best grinding fruits in the whole game, second to the Buddha Fruit. It costs a total of 960,000 belly, or 1,300 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. And it also has really nice passive abilities. The first one is that you're completely immune to lava, and there's islands with lava in literally every single sea. Next up, we got the Magma Feed ability, for which literally just lets you walk on water, but you need the V2 for this. Then we got the Scorching Puddles passive ability, which makes it so that after you use any ability in the V2, it leaves behind a huge blob of magma that deals a lot of damage. Honestly, the V1 abilities of this fruit are not that good, so I'm gonna skip straight to the V2. First ability is called Magma Shower, where you shoot a butt ton of magma blobs. Then we got the X ability, which is called Volcanic Assault, where you grab your enemy and slam into them with a butt ton of magma force. Then we got the C ability, which is called Great Magma Hound, where you just shoot out a huge blob of magma. Then we got the V ability, which is called Volcanic Storm, where you slam the enemy with a butt ton of magma blobs that deal a lot of damage. Then we got the F ability, which is called Beast Rider, where you just ride on a huge magma blob and you can send it flying once you're done using it. Anyways, the next fruit that we got here is the Rumble Fruit. This fruit costs a total of 2,100,000 bellies, so it's a huge jump from the Magma Fruit. This fruit was added June 30th, 2019, and it's honestly a really cool fruit. But one of the cons of this fruit is that it cannot actually do damage to any rubber users, because if you watch One Piece, or I guess if you know basic science, you'll know that rubber is a really bad conductor, which means it can't take any damage from any type of electricity. Moving on to the abilities, the first one is called Rumble Dragon, where you just shoot out a small lightning projectile. Then we got the X ability, which is called Sky Thunder, where you just spawn in a butt ton of lightning all around you. Then we got the C ability called Sky Beam, where you just shoot down a huge beam from the sky. Then we got the V ability, which is called Thunder Bomb, where you charge up a spirit bomb and just throw it at your enemy. Then we got the F ability, which is called Lightning Dash, which is literally just a faster version of the basic dash you get, which is a pretty useless movement ability. Anyways, moving on to the weight conversions of these abilities, Lightning Beast literally changes into a Lightning Beast. You literally just shoot out a beast. And we got the X ability, which changes into Thunderstorm, which just upgrades the base ability. Then we got the C ability, which changes into Sky Judgment, making it do a lot more damage. Then we got the V ability called Thunderball Destruction, where the Spirit Bomb you throw gets a lot bigger, but it is also a lot slower, so it's not really that good for PvP. The F ability changes into Electric Flash, which makes it so that you can spam the key 3 different times, which is honestly just better than being a basic dash. Moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the Blizzard fruit. I remember they added this fruit literally right after I started playing the game. This fruit is a legendary fruit and it costs a total of 2.4 million belly, or 2,250 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. This fruit was added December 26, 2022 in update 17. The very first ability is called Snowflake Shuriken, where you just shoot out a bunch of shuriken made out of snow. Then we got the X ability, which is called Whiteout, where you just shoot out a tornado that kind of just spins around and does its own thing. Then we got the C ability, which is called Howling Wind, where you just shoot out a butt ton of wind that deals a lot of damage. Then we got the V ability, which is called Blizzard Domain, where you literally just create a blizzard which deals damage to everything around you, and this move lasts a total of 7 seconds. Then we got the F ability, which is called Tornado Flight, where you just hop on a snowy tornado and just kind of fly around dealing damage to everything that you touch. Anyways, moving on to the most powerful elemental fruit on this whole list, it's the Dough fruit. And this is actually the only mythical fruit in the game that's elemental, and in my opinion it's probably one of the best fruits in the whole game, but only for PvP. This fruit costs a total of 2.8 million belly, or 2,400 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. The very first ability of this fruit is looks just like this. Then we got the X ability, which has 2 different versions. We have the version where it grabs your enemy and slams them a bunch of times. Then we got the other version which just spawns in a huge spike from the floor. Moving on to the C ability, you grab them, swing them around, and then slam them into the floor. The V ability upgrades into Dough Fist for Sade, where we just pummel the crap out of the enemy. Then we got the F ability, which changes into Scorching Donut, which makes it so that you can ride it on water and up walls. And the texture also changes to look a little bit cooler. That's pretty much it. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a complete guide on every enemy you're going to be facing in Blox Fruits. The very first NPC you go against depends on whether you choose Pirate or Marine. If you choose Marine, then you're going to be fighting against the Trainee, which is a level 0 NPC that gives you 300 XP and 350 belly. And the exact same is for the Pirates, but you start off by fighting the Bandits. Once you're done with these quests, you move on to the jungle, and the first NPC you fight here is the Monkey, and you have to be level 10 to fight this guy. He gives you a total of 2,300 XP as well as 800 belly. Next up, we got the Gorilla, and this guy is a level 15 NPC who gives you 4,500 XP and 1,200 belly per quest. Then we got the very first boss of the game, and this is the Gorilla King, which is a level 20 boss that gives you 9,500 XP as well as 2,000 belly. The next island we move on to is the Pirate Village, and here you're going to be fighting the Pirate, which is a level 30 NPC that gives you 13,000 XP as well as 3,000 belly, and these guys actually use a cutlass as their weapon. Next up, we got the Boots, and these guys are level 40. They give you 22,000 XP when you kill them as well as 3,500 belly, and they use the Iron Mace as their weapon. Next up, we got a boss, Bobby, also known as Buggy, because that's actually his true name, but they had to change it for copyright. This guy's level 55, he gives you 45,000 XP as well as 8,000 belly. And just like the Gorilla King from before, he actually does have Haki. This guy also has the Chop Fruit as well as a Cutlass. The next island we got here is the Desert, and the very first NPC you fight here are called the Desert Bandits, which are level 60 NPCs that give you 45,000 XP as well as 4,000 belly, and they use the Cutlass to fight. Next up, we got the Desert Officers, who are level 75. They give you 65,000 XP as well as 4,500 belly. These guys also happen to use the Cutlass to fight. The next island we got here is the Frozen Village. The first NPC you fight here is called the Snow Bandit, who are level 90, and these guys use a katana as their weapon. Next up, we got the Snowmen, which are level 100 NPCs. They give you 150,000 XP when you kill them, and they use the basic combat fighting style. Next up, we got the Yeti, and this is a level 105 boss who gives you 220,000 XP as well as 10,000 belly. Moving on to the Marine Fortress Island, the first NPCs you fight here are called the Chief Petty Officers, who are level 120. They give you 225,000 XP as well as 6,000 belly per quest, and they use the dual katana to fight. And directly after that, we got a boss quest, and this is the Vice Admiral, who's a level 130 boss. He gives you 415,000 XP as well as 15,000 belly, and this guy actually uses the triple katana to fight. Moving on to Skylands, the first NPC we got here is the Sky Bandit, who's level 150 and uses the dual katana to fight. Then we got the Dark Masters, who are level 175, and these guys use the Iron Mace to fight, same as the Brutes from before. Moving on to the Prison Island, we got a butt ton of enemies here. The first ones are the Prisoners, who are level 190. Then we got the Dangerous Prisoners, who are level 210. They give you 780,000 XP when you kill them, and they also use the Cutlass to fight. Next up, we got a boss called the Warden, who's level 220 and also uses the dual katanas to fight. Then we got the Chief Warden, who's level 230, gives you 1 million XP and uses the Warden sword to fight, which you have a chance of getting dropped once you kill them. Next up, we got a level 240 boss called Swan, who gives you 1.6 million XP when you complete his quest. And this guy actually has the spider fruit. And this guy's basically just Doflamingo from One Piece. I mean, look at the similarities. Moving on to the Colosseum Island, the first NPC, we got the Toga Warriors, who are level 250. And they actually don't have any weapons, so they use the basic combat styles to fight. The next NPCs are level 275. And these guys also use the basic combat style to fight. Moving on to the Magma Village, the first NPCs we got here are the military soldiers, who are level 300. And they also happen to use the katana to fight. And they also have 50% of their Haki unlocked. Then we got the military spies, who are level 325. And these guys can actually use the flash type ability. So they're going to be zipping around you the whole time when you fight them. Next up, we got a boss called the Magma Admiral, who's basically a Kainu from One Piece. And this guy's level 350 and he uses the magma fruit to fight. Anyways, moving on to Underwater City, the first NPCs here are called the Fishman Warriors, who are level 375 and they use the basic katana to fight. Next up, we got the Fishman Commandors, who are level 400. They give you 3.35 million XP per quest as well as 9,000 belly, and these guys use the triple katana to fight. Then we got the boss of the Underwater City, who is called the Fishman Lord, and this guy happens to be level 425, and this guy uses the trident to fight, which is a pretty cool sword, so I recommend getting your hands on this as soon as you can. Moving on to Upper Skylands, we got a butt ton of NPCs here. The first ones are called God's Guards, who are level 450 and they use the dual-headed blade to fight. Then we got the Shandas, who are level 475, and these guys actually use the basic combat style to fight. Then we got the Whisper Boss, who's a level 500 boss. He gives you 7.5 million XP as well as 15,000 belly, and this guy uses a bazooka to fight it, which you have a chance of getting dropped once you kill him. Moving on, we got the Royal Guards, who are level 525. They give you 5.8 million XP as well as 9,500 belly. Next up, we got the Royal Soldiers, who are level 550. They give you 6.3 million XP as a quest as well as 9,750 belly. And we got the big boss of Upper Skylands, the Thunder God, who's a level 575 boss. He gives you 8 million XP per quest as well as 20,000 belly. And this guy actually uses the Rumble Fruit as well as the Pole V1. And I recommend farming this boss just for the Pole V1, because when you upgrade it to V2, it becomes one of the most overpowered swords in the whole game. Moving on to the final island of the first sea, we got the Galley Pirates, and these guys are level 625 and they use the basic katana to fight. Then we got the Galley Captains, who are level 650, and these guys use the cutlass as well as Haki to fight. Moving on to the final big bad of the first sea, the Cyborg Boss, who's a level 670 boss. He gives you 10 million XP as well as 20,000 belly when you kill him, and he also drops you the cool shades, which are pretty cool accessories. Anyways, moving on to the second sea, the very first NPC we got here are Raiders, who are level 700. They give you 8.75 million XP per quest as well as 10,250 belly. Then we got the Mercenaries, who are level 725, and they actually use nothing to fight, so they fight you with a basic combat fighting style. Then we got the very first boss of the second sea, and this is the Diamond Boss, who's level 750, and this guy uses the longsword to fight. Moving on, we got the Swan Pirates, who are located pretty close to the first quest giver. These guys are level 775 and they use the katana to fight. Then we got the Factory Staff, who are level 800. They give you 13 million XP per quest as well as 11,000 belly, and these guys actually have a random chance of spawning in with the Bomb Fruit, the Smoke Fruit, and the Spike Fruit. Next up, we got a boss called Jeremy, who's literally level 850 and gives you 16 million XP per quest as well as 25,000 belly, and this guy actually uses the Spring Fruit to fight. Moving on to the next island called Green Zone, the first NPCs here are called the Marine Lieutenants, who are level 875 and use the katana as a weapon. Then we got the Marine Captains, who are level 900, and these guys use the katana as well as Haki. Then we got the Vegeta Boss, who is literally Fujitora from One Piece. This guy's level 925 and he obviously uses the Gravity Fruit to fight as well as the Gravity Cane. Moving on to the Graveyard Island, the first NPCs we got here are the Zombies, who are level 950 and give you 19 million XP per quest. Then we got the Vampires, who are level 975, and these guys actually use Flash Step just like the military spies from before, so they're pretty tricky to fight against because they're going to be zipping all over the place. The next island is called the Snow Mountains, and here you can find the Snow Trooper NPCs, who are level 1000, and these guys use the dual katana to fight. Next up, we got the Winter Warriors, who are level 1050, and these guys use the basic combat style to fight. Moving on to the Hot and Cold Islands, the first NPC we got here are the Lab Subordinates, who are level 1100. They give you 25.5 million XP per quest as well as 12,250 belly, and these guys actually use a pipe to fight. Next up, we got the Horde Warriors, who are level 1125, and these guys actually use the Ice Fruit to fight, so they're pretty tricky to play against. Moving on to the boss of this island, we got the Smoke Admiral, who's level 1150, and this guy uses the Smoke Fruit as well as the Jite Sword. Moving on, we got the Magma Ninjas, who are level 1175, and these guys use the dual head dual-headed blade to fight. Then we got the lava pirates who are level 1200, and these guys obviously use the magma fruit to fight. Moving on to the cursed ship, we got the ship deckhand who's level 1250. Then we got the ship engineer who's level 1275. These guys also use flash tips, so they're pretty tricky to fight. Then we got the ship steward who are basically the cooks on the ship who are level 1300. How does that make any sense? How can cooks be so strong? I guess it makes sense if they're all like Sanji. Then we got the ship officers who are level 1325, and these guys also use the cutlass to fight. Moving on to the ice castle, the first NPCs here are called the Arctic warriors who are level 1350, and these guys use the katana as their weapon. Next up we got the snow lurker who's level 1375, and these guys also use the ice fruit to fight. Moving on, we got the awakened ice admiral who's a level 1400 boss, and he obviously uses the awakened ice fruit to fight. I mean, it's literally in his name. The next island we got here is the Forgotten Island, and the first NPC is called the sea soldier who's level 1425, and this guy uses the water kung fu fighting style. Next up we got the water fighter who's level 1450, and these guys also use water kung fu, but the difference is that these guys use Haki, so they're pretty dangerous. Moving on to the final big bad of the second sea, we got the tidekeeper who's a level 1475 boss who uses the dragon trident to fight, and it's an incredibly overpowered sword, so I recommend getting your hands on this. Anyways, moving on to the third sea, the very first NPCs here are called the pirate millionaires, and these guys are level 1500, and they use the Bicento to fight. Next up we got the pistol billionaires who are level 1525, and they use the refined musket to fight. Then we got the very first boss of the third sea, the stone boss, who's level 1550, and this guy uses a bomb fruit to fight. Moving on to the next island, we got a butt ton of NPCs here. The first one is called the dragon crew warrior who uses a long sword to fight. Then we got the dragon crew archer who's level 1600 and uses the serpent bow to fight. Next up we got the female islander who's level 1625 and uses the iron mace to fight. Next up we got the giant islander who's level 1650 and just uses Haki as well as the basic combat style to fight. Then we got the island empress who's level 1675 and uses the old love fruit as well as Haki to fight. Moving on to the next island, the first NPCs we got here are the marine commandors who are level 1700 and use a dual katana to fight. Then we got the marine rear admiral who's level 1725 and they use the spin fruit to fight. Then we got the kilo admiral who's a pretty overpowered boss even though she uses the kilo fruit, who's level 1750. Moving on to the next island, which is the turtle island. This literally has 3 different quest givers, so you already know it's gonna have a butt ton of NPCs. The first one are the fishermen raiders who are level 1775 and they use the shark saw to fight. Then we got the fishermen captains who are level 1800 and these guys use the trident to fight. Next up we got the forest pirates who are level 1825 and they use the basic combat style as well as Haki. Then we got the mythological pirates who are level 1850 and they use the electric fighting style. Then we got Captain Elephant who's actually a boss that's level 1875 and these guys use the twin hooks to fight. Next up we got the jungle pirates who are level 1900 and they use the dark step fighting style. Next up we got the musketeer pirates who use the Cavender sword as well as flash step. Next up we got the beautiful pirates who are level 1950 and this guy also uses the Cavender sword to fight. He is a pretty overpowered boss. Moving on to the haunted castle, the first NPC we got here are the reborn skeletons who use the dark step fighting style. Next up we got the living zombies who are literally level 2000 and these guys actually use flash step as well as the superhuman M1 ability, so you already know these guys are overpowered. Next up we got the demonic souls who are level 2025 and they use the flame fruit to fight. Then we got the possessed mummies who are level 2050 and these guys use the dark fruit to fight. Moving on to the sea of treats, there's a butt ton of NPCs here. The first one is the peanut scout who's level 2075 and uses the cutlass to fight. Then we got the peanut president who is level 2100 and uses Haki as well as the basic combat fighting style. Then we got the ice cream chef who's level 2125 and uses the dark step fighting style. Then we got the ice cream commodore who's level 2150 and uses a dual-headed blade to fight. Then we got the cake queen who's actually a really overpowered boss that's level 2175 and she uses the buddy sword to fight. Next up we got cookie crafters who are level 2200 and this one uses the warden sword. Next we got the cake guards who are level 2225 and these NPCs use the triple katana. Next up we got the baking staff who are level 2250 and these guys just use Haki. Next we got the head bakers who are level 2275 and these guys just use the flame fruit. Next are the cacao warriors who are level 2300 and they use Haki with the basic fighting style. Same goes for the chocolate bar batter, but the only difference is that these guys are level 2325. Next up we got the sweet thieves who are level 2350 as well as the candy rebels who are level 2375 and these guys just use Haki. Next up we got the candy pirates who are level 2400 as well as the snow demons who are level 2400 525, and just like the ones from before, these guys just use Haki as well as the basic combat fighting style. Moving on to the next island, the first NPCs here are called the Island Outlaws, who are level 2450, and they use nothing but the combat and Haki fighting style. And the same goes for the rest of the NPCs on this list. Next up, we got the Island Boys, who are level 2475. After that, we got the Sun-Kissed Warriors, who are level 2500, and these guys literally give you 137 million XP per quest. And after that, we got the Island Champions, who are level 2525. That's pretty much it. Did you know that this sword has a secret ability that no one knows about? And this is an overpowered sword that only admins can use. These are the 11 best swords for bounty hunting in Blox Fruits. The very first sword that we got here is the Midnight Blade. And this sword is one of the coolest looking swords in the whole of Blox Fruits. It's a legendary sword that costs a total of 100 ectoplasm to buy. The NPC you get it from is called El Admin, and this guy is obviously located on the curse ship because that's where you actually farm ectoplasm. The very first ability of this sword is called Portal Openings, where you just dash forward into your enemy, slam them around into a bunch of portals, and slam them back into the floor. It's extremely similar to the Portal Fruit Z ability. Next up, we got the X ability, and this one is called Crescent Dash, where you dash straight into your enemy and just hit them with a bombardment of Twilight looking attacks. I just have to say the effects for this sword look amazing. And by the way, the second ability has a 325 mastery, so don't expect yourself to get this anytime soon. And if you want to upgrade the sword to tier 2, you need a total of 40 ectoplasm as well as 15 metal scraps, and increases the sword's damage by a total of 13%. The M1 clicks for this sword do 3000 damage, the Z ability does 5000, and the X ability does 5300. Overall, this sword has high damage. It's a pretty good close range, especially with the Butterfruit, has good stuns and mobility, and amazing combo potential. But the bad thing is that it has an extremely small hitbox for its attacks, and it's only good at close range because a lot of the abilities are close range based. And also, just like many other swords in the game, you're actually vulnerable when you're casting your move, and both moves are escapable with instinct. But this sword does a heavy amount of damage, so that honestly makes up for it. Moving on to the next sword we got, this one's called the Fox Lamp, and it's actually added pretty recently in update 20. This is yet another legendary sword, and you get this from the Kitsune Shrine by getting 15 Azure Embers, and it's actually not guaranteed even if you have that. And you have to offer it to the shrine during the blue moon, obviously. Moving on to the very first ability of this sword, we got Scorching Azure, and this actually has the same particle effects as the Kitsune Fruit, so it looks extremely cool. And by the way, this ability has 150 mastery, so you're not going to unlock it after you get the sword. It's going to take quite a while. This ability actually has two different variants. One of them, you throw a bunch of particles over to your enemy and just continue slashing them. For the second variant, you can actually hold it down, kind of charge it up, and it deals a lot more damage, and you can tell because the particles are a lot bigger. Next up, we've got the X ability, and this is called Infernal Firestorm, and this ability also does have two different variants. For the first variant, you actually dash straight into your enemy and deal a butt ton of damage to them. To use the second variant, you have to obviously hold the key down, and you basically just charge up your dash straight into your enemy and do a lot more damage. And this move is extremely similar to the X ability of the Sound Fruit. The good thing about this sword is that it has extremely high combo potential if you need your combos to be quick, and it does do a lot of damage, and both moves actually have zero end lag. But the downsides are that you need extremely good aim to use these abilities, and obviously this sword is incredibly difficult to obtain and also does have a very high mastery requirement. So if you want to get this sword, make sure you're willing to pay the price of grinding. The next sword that we got here is the Pole V2. This is yet another legendary sword, and you actually get this by upgrading the Pole V1. To get the Pole V1, you have to defeat the Enel boss who's located at Upper Sky in the first sea. Once you get the Pole V1 to 180 mastery, you need to completely awaken your Rumble Fruit with a 250 mastery, and you also have to complete an extra Rumble raid. You're going to be teleported an island in the sky, and you can interact with the Thunder God NPC, and then you can purchase the Pole V2 for a total of 5,000 fragments. And you actually won't lose your Pole V1 when you obtain Pole V2, so you can still use both of them. But I don't really see a point of using the V1 if you have the V2. It's just kind of useless. Anyways, moving on to the abilities of this sword. The first one is called Hand of God. You basically just fire 3 different lightning strikes that deal a decent amount of damage. The X ability is called Electrical Prism, where you just kind of shoot lightning to everything around where your cursor is aiming. If you want to upgrade the sword to grade 2, it costs a total of 15 fish tails, 10 mystic droplets, and 12 metal scraps. It increases the sword's damage by a total of 8%, so I'm not really sure if it's worth it. But if you do happen to get your hands on these extra materials, then I definitely recommend going for it. Anyways, the M1 click of this sword does a total of 3000 damage. The Z ability does 4500, and the X ability does 4700 damage. But it does have a 13.5 second cooldown. The good things about this sword is that all moves can damage CB, so it's extremely useful for farming those. It obviously has good stun and pretty insane damage. And unlike the Rumble Fruit, this sword can actually hit rubber users, so that's a +1 to that. And this sword is honestly good for every build, and also has decent combo potential, and both of its moves break instinct, which is why it's crucial towards bounty hunting. The downsides of this is that the sword is incredibly difficult to get. If you total up the fragments, you need a total of 19,500 fragments just to get this sword. And the M1 attacks are honestly pretty slow, even though they do deal a decent amount of damage. But honestly, if you're going to be bounty hunting with this, you're mostly going to be using it for the combos, so make sure you just spam the crap out of those abilities. Anyways, the next sword that we got on this list is called the Shark Anchor. This is yet another legendary sword, and you can get this by using the Monster Magnet and then defeating the Anchor Terror Shark boss. Toss. The very first ability of this sword is called Typhoon Toss, with a 150 mastery requirement, where you basically just spin your sword around and just shoot out a typhoon that deals a decent amount of damage to anything that it lands on. And this is similar to the Awakened Doe's C ability. Next up, we got the X ability, which has a 350 mastery requirement. For the first version, you dash straight into your enemy and just slam the sword straight into them. The second version, you can actually use against CB, ships, terror sharks, factory cores, and the Leviathan. And you can reduce the armor from the transformed Buddha as well as Mammoth users. When you use the second version of this ability, it actually kind of changes color. So when you use it on a sea beast, it's actually pink, and it does look a lot cooler in my opinion. And if you want to upgrade this sword to grade 2, you need a total of 10 fishtails, 5 mystic droplets, 50 metal scraps, and this increases the sword's damage by a total of 7%. Anyways, the M1 click for the sword does a total of 2,900 damage. The Z ability does 5,000. The second version of the Z ability does 6,000 damage. The X ability does 5,000 damage. Overall, this sword has high damage, high combo potential. All of its moves have an area of effect, so you can easily deal damage to any enemy that you're aiming for. It also has good stun abilities. Just like the other swords, this has the big downside of taking a lot of time to obtain, and also does have a high mastery requirement. Honestly, the M1 abilities for the sword are also pretty bad. You don't really want to be relying on them. And the Z ability actually does have high knockback, and this can kind of be a good or bad thing depending on how you want to use it. Anyways, moving on, the next sword that we got on this list is the Saber Sword. And a fun fact about this sword is that it actually does the highest M1 damage out of every single sword in the whole game. And this sword actually does have two different versions, just like the pole sword from before. To get the first version, you need to defeat the Saber expert, which you can fight by completing the Saber puzzle. To upgrade it to V2, you need to earn 1 million bounty or honor, and then you have to kill a player who's on a similar level with you. And there are no mastery or level requirements for this. The very first ability of the V1 is called Deadly Rush, where you just dash into your enemy and deal a bit of damage to them. Then we got the X ability, which is called Triple Slash, where you shoot out 3 different slashes. When you upgrade the sword to V2, the Z ability upgrades so that you shoot out slashes and dash into your enemy. The X ability changes so that it looks a lot stronger, and you already know it does a lot of damage, and the slashes also travel 10 times faster. You need a total of 5 radioactive material, 10 metal scraps, as well as 10 magma ore, and increases the sword's damage by 15%, so I definitely recommend doing this if you get the materials. The good thing about this sword is that you can get it as early as level 200, which makes it an incredibly good starter weapon. It also does good damage, it has a very decent hitbox for its attacks, it's good for grinding, and it has low mastery requirements. The bad thing obviously cannot hit chop users like every other sword in the whole game. It has slow M1 abilities, even though they do the most damage. Anyways, moving on, the next sword that we got here is called the Halo Scythe. This is the very first mythical sword that we have on this list, but you can only get it in the 3rd sea. And you can get it by defeating the Soul Reaper, who you spawn in with Halo Essence. You can get that by rolling random surprises from the Death King. Anyways, moving on to the abilities, the first ability of this sword is called Death Cyclone, and it has a 150 mastery requirement. And just like the ability's name, it just shoots out a huge cyclone of death that just charges forward and deals damage to everything in its path. Next up, we got the X ability. This one is called Soul Execution with a 350 mastery requirement. And this one, you dash into your enemy, grab them, and just kind of slam them into the distance. An incredibly overpowered attack. The M1 ability for this sword does a total of 2,600 damage. The Z ability does 4,700 to 5,800 depending on how long the enemy stays inside the tornado. The X ability does 4,700 to 6,000 damage, and this depends on how low the enemy's health already is, because the amount of damage the attack does actually varies. The good things about this sword is that it has incredibly low cooldowns for all its abilities, it has very good mobility, and all of its moves are multi-target, and it has very low casting time, literally 0, unless you want to charge up your abilities. The bad things is that the M1 ability has been slightly nerfed compared to other swords, and it's also incredibly difficult to obtain, and it's kind of random, because when you're rolling surprises at Death King, it's incredibly difficult to get Halo Essence, which is what you actually need to spawn in the boss to get this sword from. Anyways, moving on, the next sword we got on this list is kind of pay to win, and I think you guys already know which one it is. It's obviously the Dark Blade, yet another mythical sword, and the way you get it is literally just by going to the shop and buying it for a total of 1,200 Robux. You can also get it traded to you, but I don't think there's a lot of people out there willing to trade their Dark Blade. The first ability of this sword is called 1,000 Slices, where you just cut the arrow a butt ton of times, and this literally has a 1 mastery requirement, so you can get this ability as soon as you unlock the sword. Next up, we got the X ability with a 50 mastery requirement, where you just shoot out a huge slash that deals a lot of damage, and actually deals knockback to everything in its way. And the sword actually does have a V2, which you can unlock by doing a quest, but a lot of people don't even know about this because most people in the game don't even have this sword. The sword does have a V2, which you can upgrade it to for a total of 1 Dark Fragment, 15 Dragon Scales, and 10 Magma Ore, and increases the sword's damage by 8%, so I'm not really sure if it's worth it. But at the end of the day, if you have the materials, then why not just do it? Then one ability is where the sword does a total of 3,000 damage, the Z ability does 4,900, and the X ability does 5,000, and it does 5,200 if you hold the ability down. This sword is really overpowered when you pair it with fruits like the Ice, Dark, or Rumble fruit, fruits that can stun your opponent. It does incredibly high damage, and it's very good against CBs, and it also has amazing combo potential just because of how the abilities work. And the best thing about this sword is honestly its low mastery requirements. You can literally unlock the abilities in minutes. But the bad thing is that it's obviously pay to win. The only way you can technically get it is with Robux. The next sword we got on this list is the Cursed Dual Katana, or CDK for short. You can get this sword from the Floating Turtle in the 3rd see. And the way you do that is by unlocking a 350 mastery on both your Yama and Tushida sword. And then you have to complete the Cursed Dual Katana puzzle, which is a long and tedious quest. Once you do that, you can finally unlock the sword. First up, we got the Z ability, and this one is called Revolving Ravager, but it does have a 175 mastery requirement, where you just shoot out a huge electrical sword looking red burst. Pretty interesting ability. It does do a lot of damage though. And we got the X ability, which is Slayer of Goliath, but it does have a 375 mastery requirement, where you just shoot out a huge attack, and you can actually charge this one up to do a lot more damage. This sword also does have a grade 2, which you can get for 10 demonic wisps, 10 mini tusks, and 60 metal scraps, and increases the sword's damage by 70%. The sword has amazing combo potential, extremely high damage, and all of its moves are multi-target, but the bad thing is that it's incredibly difficult to obtain because you need 2 of the hardest swords to get in the whole game, and you need to complete this long and tedious quest, and you need to get a 350 mastery for both of them. Moving on, we got the True Triple Katana, which is called TTK for short, and you can get this from the green zone by buying it from the Mysterious Man. Before you get this, you actually need the Sadi sword, the Shisui sword, as well as the Wado sword. That means it costs a total of 6,000 belly to buy all of them, and on top of that, once you talk to the Mysterious Man, you need to pay him 2,000 belly to get the sword, which means in total you need 8 million belly to get this sword. Damn, that is a lot of money. And keep in mind, you also need to have a 300 mastery on all of those swords that you bought before you can actually unlock this from the Mysterious Man. Good luck doing that. Anyways, moving on to the abilities, the first one is called Wolf Fang Rush, where you dash straight into enemy and send them flying. Next up is the X ability. This one is called Dragon Hurricane, where you shoot out a bolt of energy that actually just turns into a hurricane and deals a lot of damage to your enemy. Then one abilities of this sword do a total of 3,100 damage. The Z ability does 5,400, and the X ability does 5,400 to 6,300, depending on how long the enemy stays inside the tornado. The good thing about the sword is that it does incredibly high damage, but the bad thing is how difficult it is to get. You need 8,000 belly as well as 300 mastery on 3 different swords. And if you're trying to get this, I definitely recommend using private servers. The next sword that we got here is literally the most overpowered sword in the whole game. I'm not sure a lot of you even know that this sword exists. It's the Triple Dark Blade. Thought the Dark Blade from before was overpowered? Well, just wait till you see this sword. And unlike the other swords in the game, the only way you can get this is if you have an admin as a friend and they just input the sword directly into your account. Anyways, moving on to the abilities, the Z ability is the same as the previous Dark Blade, but when you move on to the X ability, the Dark Air Slash is actually changed to shoot out 3 different versions, which means if you shoot out an enemy right in front of you, then you basically just insta-kill them. Because the X ability does 4,500 damage if you hit them with all 3 of the beams. It does 3 times that, which is literally almost 15,000 damage. I doubt anybody surviving that. And the sword actually does have a V2, which you can upgrade to for 25 Dark Fragments, 99 Dragon Skills, and 99 Magma Ore. Not sure why I'm telling you guys this, like you're gonna be getting your hands on the sword anytime soon. In this video, I'm gonna be telling you about every single hidden title in Blox Fruits. And starting off, we got the Tail Beast title, and the way you get this is by going to the Kitsune Shrine. Next up, we got the Natural Bane title, and you get this by clearing 200 whole sea events. Then we got Abyss Tamer, which you get for clearing 50 sea events, and then we got Serpent Slayer, which you get by defeating the Leviathan. And if you didn't know, Leviathan is one of the most powerful sea bosses in the whole game. I think it's actually the most powerful. Next up, we got Terrorbringer, and for this one, you gotta defeat 10 whole Terror Sharks. Then we got the Do King title, and you get this by defeating the Do King. Next up, we got the Do Commander title, and you get this one by defeating the Cake Prince. Next up, we got the Devil's Luck title, and you get this by obtaining Halo Essence and the God's Chalice from praying, which is kind of difficult to do because those are some of the rarest items in the whole game. Next up, I got the Shinigami title, and you get this by defeating the Soul Reaper boss. And you get this by using Halo Essence and spawning him in at the Haunted Castle on the 3rd sea. Then we got the Death King title, and for this, you gotta collect 200 whole bones, which you can only get during the Halloween event. So unfortunately, you cannot get this anymore. Next up, we got the Undead Lord, and you also cannot get this for the exact same reason, but for this one, instead of collecting 2,000 bones, you just need 500. Then we got the Skeleton title, and for this one, you had to collect 250 bones during the event. Next up, we got the Final Hero title, and you get this by unlocking the Rainbow Savior Haki color, which is one of the coolest looking Haki colors in the game because it's the only color in the game that actually changes over time. Next up, we got the Main Character title, and you get this by completing the Citizen's Mission. Next up, we got the Chosen One title, and you get this by finding the God's Chalice in a chest, which is incredibly unlikely, but good luck to you if you want to get the title. Next up, we got the Shadow Sovereign title, and you get this by defeating Rip Indra in his true form, which is not a feat a lot of players have. Next up, we got the Ration title, and you get this by unlocking Electric Claw, one of the most powerful fighting styles in the whole game. Next up, we got Celestial Swordsman for unlocking the Tushida sword, Demon Mode for unlocking Yama. Then we got the Real Deal title for defeating an elite enemy. Then we got the Raid Boss title, and you get this by getting a fruit from any pirate raid event. Next up, we got the Sugar Rush title, and you get this by collecting 100 candies, which are only obtainable during the Christmas event. So this is actually similar to the bones from before. For 250 candies, you get the Christmas Spirit, and for 1000 candies, you get the Loco Verde title. Next up, we got the Pirate King title, and for this one, you gotta own a crew that's been in the top 10 of the leaderboard for at least 72 hours. And this is honestly the biggest flex of a title in the whole game, and in my opinion, it's the hardest to get. I mean, how many people can really say they've been a top 10 crew in the game? Next up, we got the Most Wanted title. For this, you gotta own a crew that's currently in the top 100, and this is a little bit easier to get than the Pirate King title, but it is still incredibly difficult. Next up, we got the Ghost title, and you get this by collecting 100 Ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is a currency that you can get by killing enemies on the cursed ship located at the second sea. You literally cannot find it anywhere else. Next up, we got Ruler of the Night, and for this one, you gotta collect 250 Ectoplasm. Then we got the Lonely Reaper title, and for this one, you gotta collect 1000 Ectoplasm. Damn, how many enemies are you gonna even have to kill for that? For the next one, you gotta unlock the Graveyard Secret, aka the Dark Blade Slayer skin, which is what makes the Dark Blade look white. And for this one, you get the Slayer of God title. Next up, we got the Hakashin title, and for this one, you gotta purchase every single purchasable aura color in the whole game. Unless you're a Roblox millionaire, this one is gonna be really hard to get. Next up, we got the Realm Creator title, and for this one, you gotta unlock the Winter Sky Haki color, which is pretty difficult to get. Next up, we got Bringer of Doom, and for this one, you gotta unlock the Pure Red Haki color. Then we got True Heart, and for this one, you gotta unlock the Snow White Haki color. Next up, we got the Enhancer, and for this one, you literally just have to unlock any Haki color, which shouldn't be too difficult to do if you know the places the merchant spawns at. Next up, we got the Demon Eye and Hurricane title that come with the exact same action, and that is unlocking the True Triple Katana. Then we got the Killer as well as Human Weapon, and you get both of these titles for unlocking the Superhuman Fighting Style, which is one of the strongest fighting styles in the whole game. Next up, we got the Protagonist, and for this one, you gotta defeat 2 or more players at the same time. Then we got Cold-Blooded title. For this one, you gotta defeat 10 players in the exact same server, and if you leave the server, it does not count. Then we got Apex Predator, and for this one, you gotta defeat 25 players in the same server, which is a lot harder in 10. Next up, we got the Unstoppable Force title, and for this one, you gotta defeat 5 players. Then we got Raging Demon, and for this one, you gotta defeat 20 players without dying in the same server, and this is probably one of the hardest titles to get on the whole list. If you happen to get a fruit in game that is worth more than 1 million belly from the Blox fruit gacha, then you get Luck of the Draw, which basically just shows how lucky you are. Next up, we got the Risk Taker title, and for this one, you basically just gotta roll a fruit from the Blox fruit gacha. I'm pretty sure 99% of you guys watching already have this title. It should not be that hard to get. Next up, we got the Stalker title, and for this one, you gotta defeat a player the exact same level as yours. Then we got the Executioner, and for this one, you gotta die to a player that's max level. Then we got the Silent title, and for this one, you have to die to a player that's below level 800. And if you're in the 3rd seed, this is gonna be pretty hard for you to do, because I doubt any lower level player is gonna want to fight you. Then we got the Samurai title, and for this one, you gotta unlock the Rengoku sword and equip it. Then we got the Sharkman title, and for this one, you just gotta unlock Sharkman Karate. Then we got Burning Leg, and for this one, you gotta unlock Death Step. When you unlock Dragon's Breath, you get the Dragonborn title. When you obtain the Dark Code accessory, which is actually a pretty cool looking accessory, you get the Wicked Captain title. Then we got Night Owl for buying a fruit that's worth more than 1 million belly. Then we got Living Lavish for buying any fruit from the Blox fruit dealer, which should also be incredibly easy to do because the Rocket fruit and the Spin fruit are always in stock. Then we got the Kraken title, and for this one, you just gotta drop a fruit into the sea. Next up, we got the Kind-Hearted title, and for this one, you just gotta drop a fruit. And you can actually kind of cheese this title because you don't really need to give it to anybody. You can just drop it on the floor and pick it up, which doesn't really make you kind-hearted, so that kind of just defeats the whole point of this title. Next up, we got the Knight's Edge title, and you get this for defeating the Cursed Captain. Next up, we got Beyond Death for defeating the Order boss. For defeating Darkbeard, you get the Cursed One. For defeating Dawn Swan, you get the Heavenly Devil title, and you unlock Hidden Power by eating a physical fruit. Then we got the Troll, and for this, you gotta die with a fruit in your inventory. Then we got Forbidden One, and for this one, you gotta find the Fist of Darkness in a chest, which is pretty difficult to do. Then we got the Lost Soul, and for this one, you gotta die to Factory Poison. Then we got the Beast, and for this one, you gotta defeat 25 whole CBs. Then we got Beast Hunter, which is a lot easier to get than the previous one. For this one, you just gotta defeat 1 singular CBs, which shouldn't be that difficult to do if you have an IQ above 5. Then we got the Swordsman title, and for this one, you just gotta obtain a sword from the Legendary Sword Dealer. Then we got the Collector, and for this one, you gotta buy something from the Legendary Swords Dealer or the Master of Auras. So if you buy something from the Legendary Sword Dealer, you basically just get 2 titles with it. Next up, we got the Rich title, and for this, you just gotta obtain 5 million belly. Then we got Unlimited Money, and for this one, you have to have 20 million belly. Next up, we got the Richest in the World. For this one, you gotta obtain 50 million belly, which is incredibly difficult to do. Next up, we got Equal to the Heavens, and for this one, you gotta defeat a Blox fruit staff member, which is no easy task, because how often are you gonna run into a staff member? I don't even think I've ever encountered a staff member in my whole life. Then we got the Blessed One title, and for this one, you gotta find a fruit. Next up, we got Toxic, and for this, you have to win a fruit from the factory event. And if you happen to die to water, then you get the Tide Warrior title. Not sure why this is an achievement, but anything for the title. Then we got the Champion title, and for this, you gotta complete Bartillo's mission. Next up, we got Last Hope, and for this one, you have to be the last person standing in a raid. And it's actually obtainable if you're doing the raid solo, which literally makes no sense, because you've been the last hope from the start then. If you complete a raid in under 5 minutes, you get the Supersonic title. If you complete a raid in less than 3 minutes 30 seconds, you get the Flash title, which is a pretty cool title, if you're a fan of the superhero, that is. Then we got the Conqueror, and you get this by just simply completing a raid. You get the Broken Heart title if you run out of time during a raid. If you reach max mastery in Blox fruits, then you get the Beyond the Sea title. Next up, we got the King Sniper title, and for this, you have to reach max mastery on a gun. Then we got the God's Blade title, and for this one, you gotta reach max mastery on a sword. Then we got Fist of Death, and for this, you have to reach max mastery on a fighting style. Next up, we got the Master title, and for this, you have to just reach max mastery on any sword, gun, or fighting style. And you also get the Unbreakable Will for this exact same achievement. Next up, we got the Explorer, and for this one, you just gotta reach level 800. Then we got the Adventurer, this one for reaching level 1000. If you reach level 1200, you get the Mercenary. If you reach level 1600, you get the Viking. If you reach level 2000, you get the Pioneer. And if you reach level 2400, you get the Glorious, which is a pretty glorious title. Then we got the Ship Destroyer title, and for this one you just gotta destroy a ship with a cannon, which is actually easier said than done. Then we got the Dog title, and for this you just have to talk to the doghouse. Next up we got the Mastermind title, and for this one you have to defeat your opponent in a chess game. And if you didn't know, you could actually play chess in Blox Fruits, and you access the chessboard by heading over to the bottom floor of the cafe. Next up we got the Mad King title, and for this one you have to use castling in a chess match in a Blox Fruits chess game. Next up we got the Immortal Being title, and for this one you gotta receive damage from a player and survive with 1 HP left, which is incredibly difficult to do. Next up we got the Undefeated one, and for this one you gotta receive damage from a player and survive with less than 50 HP left. So this is a lot easier than Immortal Being. If you happen to trade your fragments for stat refund, you get the Jack of all trades title, and you get the Grandfather title by trading in your fragments for a race reroll. If you stay in a server for more than 1 hour, you get the Shadow title. If you stay in a server for more than 4 hours, you get the Vampire title. If you stay in a server for more than 12 hours, you get the Dracula title. If you buy a regular microchip to start a raid, which I'm pretty sure everybody that's in the second sea has done at least once, you get the Mad Scientist title. If you buy a special microchip, then you get the Professor title. You get the Ultra Instinct title by reaching Max Instinct, and if you watch Dragon Ball, you already know why this is a cool title. Next up we got the Iron Man title, and you get this by reaching Max Haki. Next up we got Fallen Hero, and you get this by dying to a raid boss. Next up we got the Vanquished, and for this one you just gotta die to a normal boss. Then we got the Unlucky, and for this you have to just die to a regular enemy, which should be incredibly easy to do even if you are max level, because there's an enemy for everybody. Then we got the Empty Vessel title, and for this one you just have to run out of energy, which is way easier to do when you're a lower level. Then we got Justice Seeker, and for this one you have to claim a bounty as a marine. Next up we got a bunch of YouTuber titles that you get for specifically destroying YouTubers. If you defeat Raijo's End, then you get the Endless Fantasy title. If you defeat me and you get the Nakama Forever title. If you defeat Fur999, you get El Combo God. If you beat JCWK, you get Team JC. You get the Kit Kat title by defeating Kid Gaming. You get the Magic Slayer title by defeating Magic Bus. You get the Hiora family by defeating Hiora. You get the Mafia Gang by defeating Bloxy Gaming. You get the Don Exori family by defeating Exori. You get Water Gang by defeating Dyrock. You get Officially a Noob by defeating Official Newbie, who's actually one of the greatest YouTubers of all time. You get the A Squad title for defeating the Great Ace. Next up we got a very special title. It's the YouTuber title, and you get this by basically being a super good Blox Fruits YouTuber, which I am unfortunately not, but maybe one day. Next up we got the Red Legion title, and you get this by joining the Red Legion group on Roblox. Then we got the Rip Family title, and you get this by joining the Rip Family group on Roblox. Next up we got the Big News title, and you get this by using the code Big News. What a random code. Imagine just using the code Big News and you just end up with the title which says the exact same thing. That's pretty funny. Next up we got Devourer of Worlds, and you get this by completing the April Fool's 2023 event, which you can't really get anymore. Next up we got Venlock Toad, and you get this by also completing the exact same event. Next up we got the Innovator title, and you get this by voting at Roblox Innovation Awards 2023, which is also no longer available. Now we got a butt ton of titles for fruit awakenings. For awakening the Dough Fruit, you get Bread Chaser. You get the Phoenix for awakening Phoenix. You get Desert Prince for awakening the Sand Fruit. For awakening the Buddha Fruit, you get Colossal God. For awakening Magma, you get Red Dog. For Rumble, you get Thunder God. For Spider Fruit, you get the Spider. For the Dark Fruit, you get Dark Lord. For the Light Fruit, you get the First Light. For the Quake Fruit, you get the Strongest One. For the Ice Fruit, you get the Ice King, as well as the Ice Queen, obviously. And for the Flame Fruit, you get Flame Fist. And these 4 titles you get for unlocking any awakening: Over Hell, Over Heaven, Awakened One, and Enlightened One. If you reach 10 million honor as a Marine, then you get the Admiral title. And if you reach 20 million honor, you get the Fleet Admiral title. Next up we got Warlord of the Sea, and you get this by reaching 10 million bounty. Then we got Emperor of the Sea as well as Empress of the Sea, and you get this by reaching 20 million bounty. Next up we got the Pirate Hunter title as well as the Bounty Hunter title, and you get this by getting 5 million bounty or honor. And next up we got a butt ton of titles for all the race V4s. For Human V4 you get Berserker. For Rabbit V4 you get Thunderbolt. For Shark V4 you get Leviathan. For Angel V4 you get His Majesty. For Ghoul V4 you get Nightwalker, and for Cyborg V4 you get Genesis. Now we got some for the V3s as well. For the Cyborg V3 you get War Machine. For Ghoul V3 you get Hellhound. You get the Perfect Being title. For Angel V3 you get Warrior of the Sea. For Shark V3 you get Godspeed. For Rabbit V3 you get Full Power. For Human V3. Finally moving on to the V2s. For the Cyborg you get the Cyborg. For Ghoul you get the Ghoul. For Angel you get Sacred Warrior. For Shark you get Sea Monster. For the Rabbit V2 you get Unmatched Speed. And for Human V2 you get the Unleashed. Now let's move on to some unobtainable titles, which you can't really get. Most of these titles are literally just player based, so you can only get them if you are a specific player. If you're Kyoto Kyo, then you get the Just a Guest title. If you're Answay, you get the El Perro Official TV title. If you get Rip Indra, then you get Rip Family Leader. If you get Tortoise, then you get Dragon of Dojima. If you're Uzot, you get the Dragon Terror blah blah blah. If you're Guashim, then you get the Lost Crazy Real Official. If you're Uzi London, then you get the El Poppy title. If you're Broad, you get the Brazil God and whatever this is title. If you're Drip Mama, then you get the Lost Original Bestia Supremo Loco Verde title, which is honestly a very cool title. If you're Ari, then you get Sable's Pastado title. If you're Rip Indra, you can also get the Loco Verde title. If you're Experimentric, then you get the Festive Jester title. And if you're an admin, you get the El El Rodolfo official title. And obviously if you're the owner as well as the co-owner of Blox Fruits, then you get the owner title as well as the boss Blox Fruits official title. That's pretty much it. In this video, I'm going to be telling you about every single mythical fruit in Blox Fruits, starting off with the gravity fruit. This is a fruit that costs a total of 2.5 million value or 2,300 Robux from the Blox Fruit dealer. And just like every fruit on this list, this is obviously a mythical fruit. This fruit was actually released pretty early, literally at update 5, which came out July 14th, 2019. The very first ability is called Gravity Push, and it's extremely simple ability. You just shoot forward a gravity kind of quake, and it deals a decent amount of damage and knockback to your enemies. Next up, we got Gravity Obsidians. For this one, you basically just create a huge gravity area around you, which makes the gravity around you extremely high. That means everything around you just starts taking a bit of damage. The next ability is called Meteor Pitch, and for this one, you literally just summon down one huge meteor that completely decimates your enemy. It doesn't literally kill them, but it does do a decent amount of damage. Next up, we got the B ability, which is the strongest move in every single fruit, and this one is called Meteor Rain. It's just like the C ability, except instead of spawning in just one meteor, you literally spawn in like 4, and you can actually control where the meteors land by just moving your cursor. Next up, we got the F ability, and this is the movement ability of this fruit, and this is called Boulder Flight, where you literally just hop on a boulder and you can just start flying around. And this is a pretty unique movement ability. Overall, the pros of this fruit are that it has decent damage, good combo potential, and all of its moves have an extremely huge hitbox, especially the V move. And all of this fruit's abilities actually break instinct, so it's pretty good to PvP with. But the bad thing about this fruit is that it's incredibly terrible mid-air and also on water combat. You're not fighting over water or people in the air that often, but it is still a huge downside. And also cannot catch up to people that have fast fruits or swords, but you can't win at everything. And honestly, the cooldowns for the fruits are incredibly long, so it's going to be pretty tedious to grind with. So if you have this fruit, I recommend just mainly using it for PvP or to fight against bosses, obviously. Anyways, let's head over to the next mythical fruit that we got on this list. And this is actually something that came out pretty recently. Well, not that recently, but it came out during update 20. And you guessed it, it is the mammoth fruit. This fruit costs a total of 2.7 million belly or 2,350 Robux from the Blox Fruit dealer. This fruit came out on October 21st, 2023. Anyways, let's get into the moves of this fruit. First up, we got the Z ability, and this one is called Ancient Cutter, where you just shoot out 3 slashes like you have 3 swords with you. It's pretty cool. Then we got the X ability, and this one is called True Prehistoric Punt, where you just dash straight into your enemy and just slam into them. Then we got the C ability, which is extremely similar to the X ability, but instead of grabbing your enemy and throwing them away, you actually just slam them straight into the floor, dealing a lot of damage. Then we got the V ability, which is a transformation for this fruit, which makes it so you actually just transform into full-on Giga Mammoth with a butt ton of overpowered armor around you, which makes it so the damage you take is actually reduced by 50%. And now all of your moves actually change a little bit, so instead of having a phantom mammoth, you'll have a real mammoth. Next up, we got the F ability, and this one is called Stampede, which actually works differently depending on which form you're in. If you're in the base form, then you kind of just jump and crash straight into the floor, dealing a decent amount of damage. But when you're in the transform form, you kind of just keep dashing forward until you let go of the key. It's literally an infinite move. But anyways, let's talk about all the abilities while in transformation. First up, you get an M1 ability where you kind of just slash your trunk around and deal damage to everything around you, similar to the leopard fruit. I mean, it's literally exactly like it with just different effects. The Z ability changes so that instead of shooting out only 3 slashes, you shoot out a total of 6, which is incredibly overpowered. The X ability changes so you just deal a lot more damage, and you can see the same changes with the C ability. And a pretty cool fact about this fruit is that when you actually transform and you try to use your air jump ability, you jump a lot higher than you normally do. Just look at this jump height, it's honestly really crazy. The great things about this fruit is that it has really large hitboxes, so it's incredibly easy to hit people you fight against. The bad thing is that it has a pretty high mastery requirement. You literally need to have a level 300 mastery on your fruit to unlock all of its abilities, so I don't really recommend this if you're trying to get your abilities really fast. Anyways, let's move to the next fruit, which came out shortly after this fruit, and this is the T-Rex fruit. It costs a total of 2.7 million belly or 2,350 Robux from the Blox Fruit dealer. This fruit came out on December 25th, 2023, literally during Christmas, which is pretty crazy. But anyways, let's get into the moves of this fruit. The very first ability is actually its M1 ability, which is a pretty cool slashing effect, similar to the electric claw fighting style, but with pretty cool dinosaur particles, I guess. Then we got the Z ability, and this one is called Tail Swipe, where you just swipe your tail. And did I mention while you have this fruit activated, you always have a tail, and that's pretty cool. It makes you look like you're a different race. Next up, we got the X ability, and this is called Predatory Screech, where you just kind of screech and you just unleash a butt ton of damage to everything standing directly in front of you. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called Hunter's Rage, where you just dash straight forward or towards wherever your cursor is aiming and you deal a decent amount of damage. Next up, we got the V ability, and this one is called Reptilian Scales, where you just literally transform into a dinosaur. And this transformation is literally one of the coolest ones in the game because you just start summoning meteors all around you. I think this is a reference to how the dinosaurs went extinct to meteors. Not really sure why they added this to Blox Fruit, but I guess it makes sense. Next up, we got the F ability, and for this you kind of just belly flop straight forward and deal a decent amount of damage. Anyways, let's get into all the abilities while they're transformed. The M1 attack stays exactly the same, but it does do a little bit more damage now. The Z ability changes so that instead of just shooting out a tail swipe, you kind of just shoot out a bunch of other attacks as well. It's pretty cool. The X ability changes so that you do a lot more damage with this. The C ability, Hunter's Rage, stays pretty much the same, but this time you're just a huge T-Rex instead of a normal person. The F ability stays exactly the same, but instead of belly flopping towards your enemy, for this one you literally just do a flip as a T-Rex. How cool is that? Overall, this fruit is pretty good because it passively gains fury, allowing you to transform similar to the dragon fruit as well as the venom fruit. When you transform, your damage actually increases, so you're pretty much become really overpowered. But the bad thing is that it has really bad range compared to most of the other fruits in the game, and its tap ability has really low damage and no stuns. Overall, not that bad of a fruit, but there are definitely better mythical fruits in the game. Speaking of better mythical fruits, the next one that we got here is the dough fruit, a community favorite. This fruit costs a total of 2.8 million belly or 2,400 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. It came out December 25th, 2019 on update 9, and ever since it released, it became one of the best fruits in the whole game. And the reason it's the best is because it has an awakening, but we will get into that later. Let's talk about its base abilities. The first D ability is called Fried Dough, where you just shoot out a small dough missile that deals a decent amount of damage, and if you angle your character right, you can actually rocket ride people with it, just like OG Fortnite. The next ability we got here is the X ability. This one is called Sticky Dough, where you just grab your enemy with a dough tentacle and just slam them straight into the floor. Then we got the C ability. This one is called Carved Dough, where you just roll towards your enemy in a roller donut and slam them straight into the ground. Then we got the V ability, and this one is called Restless Dough Barrage, where you just pummel the crap out of your enemy for a couple of seconds, dealing a butt ton of damage. And then we got the F ability, which is called Roller Donut, and it does exactly what it sounds like. You kind of just turn into a donut and just start rolling all over the place. Anyways, moving on to the awakened version of this fruit. It costs a total of 18,500 fragments to fully awaken this fruit. And the first thing you unlock is a tap ability, where you can kind of just pummel the crap out of your enemy with your M1 clicks, which is honestly really cool. The Z ability changes into Missile Jab, and it basically just changes effects and makes it do a bit more damage. Then we got the X ability, which is given two new forms. The first one is where a huge spike shoots out from the floor, dealing a butt ton of damage to your enemy. The second form is where you just grab them, sending them through a bunch of dough portals and dealing a decent amount of damage to them. Then we got the C ability, which changes into Piercing Clothes Time, where you roll straight into your enemy with a roller donut, grab them, swing them around, and slam them back straight into the floor. The V ability changes into Dough Fist Fusade, where you just grab your enemy, pummel the crap out of them, and this one does way more damage than the original version. The F ability changes into Scorching Donut, where your roller donut basically grows spikes, which makes it so you can climb up walls and drive over water. Overall, this is honestly one of the best fruits in the game for PvP, and it's definitely a top 3. If you asked me the same question like 2 years ago, it would definitely be the best in the whole game. All of its moves are really overpowered because they all break instinct. But the bad thing is that it's not really recommended for grinding because it specializes so well in PvP, and it's also incredibly difficult to obtain. And did I mention the hard mastery requirements? You literally need 300 mastery to be able to use all the abilities. But unlike some of the other fruits, you don't actually need all of the abilities, because if you take a fruit like the T-Rex fruit or the Mammoth fruit, you kind of need the transformation to use the fruit to its full potential. But for this, you don't really need it if you play your cards right. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit we got here is the Shadow fruit. This is a fruit that costs a total of 2.9 million belly or 2,425 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. Just like some of the other fruits from before, this actually has a meter, and this one is called the Umbra meter. Anyways, let's get into the abilities. First up, we got the Z ability, and this is called Somber Rebellion, where you dash straight into your enemy, pummel the crap out of them, and you go flying in the sky. Pretty weird way to end off an ability. Then we got the X ability, which is called Shade's Nest, where you just shoot out a huge dark projectile that kind of follows your enemy and deals a bit of damage to them. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called Nightmare Leech, where you just pummel the crap out of your enemy and send them flying. Just look how crazy this ability looks. Next up, we got the V ability, and this one is called Corvus Torment, where you basically just spawn a bunch of darkness around your enemy and it deals a butt ton of damage to them. Then we got the F ability, and this is actually the movement ability, and this one is called Umbrage, where you basically just turn into a dark version of the Flame Fruit's movement ability and you spawn a butt ton of bats around you. The good things about this fruit is that it has decent combo potential. It's easy to use while PvPing in the air, but the bad things are that its moves are pretty slow. It requires good aim to use in PvP. It's pretty mid for C events, and it has really high mastery requirements, but overall still a solid fruit. But the dough fruit is honestly still the best that I've talked about so far. The next fruit that we got here is the Venom fruit. This is a fruit that costs a total of 3 million belly or 2,450 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. And just like the fruit from before, this one also has a meter. This one is called the Fury meter. Anyways, let's talk about the moves. The very first ability is called Poison Daggers, where you just shoot out a bunch of poison particles that deal a decent amount of damage to your enemy. Next up is the X ability, and this one is called Noxious Shot, where you just shoot out a huge venom projectile towards your enemy that deals a decent amount of damage. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called Toxic Fog, where you just spawn in a huge fog of venom that deals damage to everything you encounter, and this fog actually follows you, so you're literally the center of attention while using this ability. Next up, we got the V ability, and this one is the Transformation, and this is honestly one of the best ones in the game. I mean, just look at how cool you look. Next up, we got the F ability, and this one is called Serpent's Wrath, where you just spawn in one head of the Hydra and you can kind of just fly around how you want. And unlike most other movement abilities in the game, this actually does have a cooldown. You can only use this for a total of 40 seconds. Anyways, let's get into the abilities while you transform. The Z ability pretty much stays the same. The X ability deals a lot more damage, and the particles also look a lot cooler. The sea ability changes so that you spawn in a huge mega fog this time, and the same as the previous ability, this one also follows you around. I'm sure it does a lot more damage. The movement ability stays pretty much the same, but I'm pretty sure you fly faster because the particles change a lot. Overall, this fruit is pretty good for PvP because all of its moves break instinct except for obviously its transformation ability. And it's honestly very versatile. You can use it in the air as well as the floor, so it's honestly a master of both worlds. But the bad thing is that it's pretty difficult to obtain and it's honestly pretty expensive. And you have to fill the fury meter before you transform. And its passive puddles are useless if you're fighting someone in the air. Overall, I still like this fruit. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is incredibly cool. This is the control fruit. It costs a total of 3.2 million belly or 2,500 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. It was released in April 17th, 2020 during update 10. So this was around 4 years ago. The very first ability of this fruit is the control area, where you just spawn in a huge dome around you, and this is where you can actually use your abilities. If you exit the dome, then you cannot use them. And the longer you hold this ability down decides how big your control area is. Next up, we got the X ability, and this is incredibly important for this fruit, and this is called levitate, where you can just pick up rocks off the ground or buildings and literally just throw them at your enemy. But keep in mind, no matter what you pick up, it deals the same amount of damage to your enemy. So it might honestly be easier to just pick up rocks from the floor. Next up, we got the C ability, and this one is called Echo Knife. And for this, you start slashing your enemy with a knife, and you combo the crap out of them, and they can't even move while you're hitting them. It's honestly a pretty OP ability. The V ability is called Gamma Rush, and for this one, you just combo the crap out of your enemy. It literally gives you the cinematic when you're doing it to them, and it does deal a decent amount of damage. Then we got the F ability, which is called Teleport, where you can just teleport anywhere around your circle. It's pretty cool, and it's similar to how Law uses his ability in One Piece. Overall, the good things about this fruit is that it's honestly really valuable in trading. That's the main thing about it. Its moves deal a great to decent amount of damage, and it's honestly very versatile, and it works pretty well with sword mains. The main con about this fruit is that you can only use its abilities while you're in the bubble. So if someone surprise attacks you, then you have to take time to spawn in your bubble before you can even start using your abilities. But that's honestly a good thing because at least they made the fruit like how it is in One Piece, which honestly I respect a lot. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the spirit fruit. This costs a total of 3.4 million belly or 2,550 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. The first ability of this fruit is the tap ability, where you can spawn in your buddies, and the bar is on the blue side, then you spawn in heavenly buddies, and if they're on the red side, you spawn in hellish buddies. The first proper ability of this fruit is called Frostfire Gas, where you use your angel buddy shoe to basically just hit your enemy with a block of ice. Then we got the X ability, and this one is called Wrath of Ra, where you just spawn in a huge flame from the floor, I guess, and for this one you use your demon buddy. Then we got the C ability, and this is called Wrath of Shoe, where you use your heavenly buddy to deal a lot of damage to your enemy. You literally just dash into them and slam them with an attack. Then we got the V ability, and this one is called End of Times, where you use both your buddies to just simultaneously shoot a huge beam, and it creates a massive explosion that deals a lot of damage. Next up, we got the F ability, and this one is called Sky Ruler, and this is a movement ability where you just fly on one of your buddies, and the one that you fly on is actually completely random. It can either be the demon or the angel. Overall, this fruit is really good because it has high combo potential. All of its moves do area damage, which makes it pretty easy to grind with, but the bad thing is that it has high mastery requirements, literally higher than all of the fruits I've spoken about so far. It has a 350 mastery requirement before you unlock its last ability, and all of its moves are honestly considered pretty slow. Anyways, moving on to the next fruit, a fan favorite and still a work in progress, the dragon fruit. This fruit costs a total of 3.5 million belly or 2,600 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer, or at least it did before it got vaulted for changes, and I'm sure it will be out soon. This fruit was added December 23rd in 2020 during update 13, and just like some of the fruits from before, this one has a meter, and this is called the Fury meter. First up, we got the Z ability, and this is called Heatwave Beam, where you just shoot out a huge projectile that deals a decent amount of damage to your enemy. Then we got the X ability, which is called Dragonic Claw, where you grab your enemy and keep dashing until you slam them into a wall. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called Fire Shower, where you just shoot out a butt ton of projectiles similar to one of the light fruits abilities. Next up, we got the V ability, and this is the transformation, where you just transform into a massive dragon, and this is actually the biggest transformation in the whole game. That makes this fruit pretty unique. Then we got the F ability, which is called Dragon Flight, where you just fly around, but this ability does become useless when you transform because you are permanently flying. Now let's talk about the abilities when you transform. The Z ability stays the same, but it does do a lot more damage, and you actually shoot the projectile out of your mouth. The X ability changes completely, where you just shoot out a total of 4 slashes that deal damage to everything in their way. The C ability changes a lot so that you start dealing damage to literally everything around you. It literally looks like you're summoning down meteors. It's honestly really cool. And obviously, like I mentioned before, the F ability cannot be used in the transformation. Overall, this fruit has really good mobility and damage, but the bad thing is that you literally can't buy the fruit right now, not until it's unvaulted. But I hope it comes back soon. Anyways, the next fruit that we got here was actually the most expensive fruit in the game for a while, until it got overshadowed by a different fruit, which I will talk about later. The leopard fruit costs a total of 5 million belly or 3,000 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. And its very first ability is the finger revolver, where you just shoot out a bunch of air projectiles with your finger and one massive one at the end. Next up, we got the X ability, and this one is called Spiraling Kick, where you just shoot out a spiraling kick made out of air, I guess, and it deals a lot of damage to your enemy. Next up, we got the C ability. This one is called After Image Assault, where you kind of just grab your enemy, dash dash them around a bit and just slam them straight into the floor. Next up we got the V ability, and this one is the transformation where you just transform into a full-bodied leopard. Next up we got the movement ability, and this one is called body flicker. You can use it to move as well as to deal damage. Now let's get to the moves while they're transformed. When you transform, you get a passive left click ability just like most other transformations in the game. The Z ability stays exactly the same, but you do deal a bit more damage. Same with the X ability, but a pretty cool thing happens with the C ability. After you use the C ability, you actually gain a speed boost by 40% for 3 to 4 seconds. Not really sure why, but if it works, I guess. Overall, this fruit is really good because all of its moves have low end lag, as well as incredibly high damage and low cooldown. And the best thing about this fruit is that literally anybody can use this. You can just be a brain dead leopard spammer, where you just spam left click and just beat the crap out of your enemies. Unless obviously they're more skilled than you, which in that case, you're cooked. The next fruit that we got here is the Kitsune fruit, a fruit that costs a total of 8 million belly or 4,000 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. Damn, that is incredibly expensive. This fruit was released in Update 20 in 2023, December 15th. The very first ability of this fruit is its normal attack, and this is the M1 ability, where it looks just like the electric claw but with Kitsune effects. The first proper ability is called Accursed Enchantment, and for this one you just shoot out a bunch of Kitsune projectiles, and they deal a decent amount of damage. Then we got the X ability called Tales of Burning Agony, where you just spawn in a projectile which kind of zigzags towards your enemy and deals a decent amount of damage to them. Then we got the C ability, which is called Foxfire Disruption, where you just shoot out a massive projectile which literally just blows up wherever your cursor is aiming. Then we got the V ability, where you transform into a Kitsune, which is honestly a really cool transformation. Then we got the F ability, which is called Wind Assault, where you dash straight to your enemy and slash the crap out of them. Now let's talk about the abilities while you're transformed. The Z ability stays exactly the same, but it does do a lot more damage and a lot more orbs spawn in. For the X ability, instead of a projectile zigzagging, you're actually the one who does it, and you grab your enemy and slam them straight into the floor. The F ability stays pretty much the same, but you just deal a lot more damage with it now. That's pretty much it. In this video, I'm going to be telling you about every single fighting style in Blox Fruit, from the ones you already know about to the ones that you never knew existed. And starting off, we got the basic combat fighting style. Every single player that joins the game gets this, and for that reason, it's also the weakest fighting style in the whole game. And there's literally no point leveling it up, so I recommend switching to another fighting style as soon as possible. When we go to the next fighting style I got here, it's the Dark Step fighting style. This is a fighting style that costs a total of 150,000 belly, and you can learn it from an NPC called the Dark Step Teacher, who's located at the pirate village between these buildings. The very first ability of this fighting style is called Flying Kick. Then we got the X ability, which is called Breakdance. Then we got the C ability, which is called Barrage. Then we got the V ability, and this basically just lights your legs on fire and makes it so you deal more damage when the transformation is active. Good things about this fighting style is it's pretty good for farming in the first sea. It's currently the cheapest fighting style that you can buy in the game. It also has decently low mastery requirements. Moving on to the cons of this fighting style, its M1 ability is actually pretty bad for farming. It's also slow and weak in PvP, and it's not really good for people that main fruits. But did you know that you can actually upgrade this fighting style? The fighting style you can upgrade it to is Death Step. It costs a total of 2.5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. You can get it from an NPC called Fio the Reform by meeting these requirements. First, you need to get the library key, which can be dropped by the Awakened Ice Admiral at the Ice Castle on the second sea. Once you do that, you can unlock this door at the entrance. Once you walk in there, you can talk to the NPC, but you do have to have your Dark Step fighting style to at least a 400 level mastery, which is going to make it incredibly difficult to get this fighting style. Moving on to this fighting style's ability. The Z ability changes to Rocket Kick. It basically just changes the ability so you slam straight into the ground and destroy your enemy. Then we got the X ability, which changes into Wind Bullet, where you shoot out a ranged attack just like you're using a sword. Then we got the C ability, which is called Vermilion Drill, where you basically just lock your enemy in place and just pummel them with a bunch of kicks. The V ability is still the transformation. It just looks a little bit cooler now, and its name changes to Maximum Overheat. Overall, this is a fighting style with good combo potential because it can just lock your opponent in place. Moving on to the cons, it still has slow M1 speed, and it's pretty hard to hit opponents when they're really far away from you. Anyways, let's head over back to one of the basic fighting styles, the electric fighting style. It costs a total of 500,000 belly, and you can get it from an NPC called the Mad Scientist, who's located next to these rocks next to Skylands. Once you get this fighting style, you're going to unlock 3 abilities. It has a decent click speed, it's a very good choice for beginners, and all of its moves can actually damage CBs. But the bad things are that its damage is honestly overpowered by the other fighting styles in the game. But you can actually upgrade this fighting style to something a lot more powerful, the electric claw fighting style. First of all, you need to pay the hefty price of 3 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. Then you need to get a 400 mastery on your electric fighting style. Then you have to head over to the floating turtle island and find an NPC called the previous hero. Once you talk to him, he's going to give you a quest that requires you to get to the mansion in under 30 seconds. And this is actually pretty easy to do because you can just set your spawn at the mansion and just teleport there once you activate the quest. Anyways, the very first ability of this fruit has a 110 mastery requirement, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. It actually has 2 different versions. For the first version, you just dash straight into your enemy, and for the second version, you hit them with a bunch of claw strikes and then dash into them. Moving on to the X ability, we got lightning thrust, and for this one you basically just dash into enemy and deal a butt ton of damage to them with electricity. The speed at which you fly at them depends on how long you hold the ability key down for. Anyways, moving on to the C ability, it's called thunderclap and flash, where you just basically dash into your enemies a bunch of time and slam them right back into the floor. The good things about this fighting style are that the quest for it is extremely easy because you can just cheese it. It has really high damage, has amazing mobility, and literally all of its moves can be used for movement, even its M1 ability. But the bad things are that it has incredibly high mastery requirements, literally 330 to unlock all the abilities. Anyways, let's head back to one of the first C fighting styles. We got water kung fu, and it costs a total of 750,000 belly, which makes it the best fighting style in the first C. But the thing about this fighting style is not actually its abilities that make it overpowered, it's the delay between the M1 attacks. This is the only fighting style in the game that does not have a delay between its M1 attack, which makes them incredibly good for grinding, especially with the Buddha fruit. But just like the previous two fighting styles, you can actually upgrade it to Sharkman Karate later on when it costs a total of 2.5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. But it does have a specific quest. You have to head over to an NPC called Dirock the Sharkman, who's located at the Forgotten Island, and then you have to give him a water key, which you can get by defeating a Tidekeeper. The first ability is called 12 water palms, but honestly I just used this ability for mobility. Anyways, let's move on to the next ability. It just shoots out a blob of water, sending your enemy flying with it. Then we got the C ability called Great Sea Spear, where you just suck your enemy towards you and send them flying far away. The good things about this fighting style is that it has pretty high damage, good combo potential, all of its moves can damage sea beasts, but the bad things are that honestly X ability actually requires a lot of aim because it's not that fast compared to other abilities and fruits. But other than that, it's honestly just the best fighting style in the whole game. Now we're heading to a V1 fighting style called Dragon's Breath, and it costs a total of 1.5 thousand fragments. And you can get it from an NPC called Sabi, who's located at a part of the bridge in the second sea. The good things about this fighting style is that it's relatively cheap, it has good damage range and decent hitboxes, and all of its moves can hit multiple enemies at the same time. Honestly, the bad things are that it has really slow abilities, so it's not really recommended for PvP. If you're trying to grind with this fighting style, it actually dashes on your 4th M1 click, so that's really inconvenient. This also has an upgraded version called Dragon Talon. You can get this in the 3rd sea. It costs a total of 3 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. First, you have to get Fire Essence from the Death King. Then you have to go to an NPC called Uzalt, who's located at the Haunted Castle. But I also forgot to mention that you have to have a 400 mastery on Dragon's Breath, just like the other V1 fighting style. Anyways, let's get over to the abilities. First up, we got the Z ability, and this one is called Talon Lighter, where you dash straight into your enemy and just burn them up. Literally, the fire turns blue. Look how cool this looks. Then we got the X ability, and this one is called Ember Annihilation, and for this one you just shoot out a huge projectile towards your enemies and dealing a lot of damage to them. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called Infernal Vortex. The good things about this fighting style is honestly it has big hitboxes and decent area of damage, and it gives distortion to your enemies when you hit them. Let's head over to the fighting styles that you did not know existed. The first one that I got here is the Superhuman fighting style, and a lot of you might have not heard about this because it's incredibly difficult to obtain. To get this fighting style, you need a 300 mastery on Dark Step, Electric, Water Kung Fu, as well as 300 on Dragon's Breath. Once you've met all of these requirements, you can go talk to the martial arts teacher who's located at the Snow Island and pay him 3 million belly. Good things about this fighting style is that it has extremely high combo potential. All of its moves can literally be used for combos, and it also has extremely good knockback, amazing damage, and honestly overall a really good fighting style. But the cons are that obviously its moves are not really good for grinding. It's just really good for PvP. But would you believe me if I told you this fighting style also has an upgraded version? It's called God Human, and it is the most powerful fighting style in the whole game. To get it, you need a 400 mastery on Superhuman, Death Step, Electric Claw, Sharkman Karate, as well as a 400 mastery on Dragon Talon. And once you meet the requirements, you can head over to the Ancient Monk, who's located at the Floating Turtle Island, and you can pay him a total of 5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments and a butt ton of materials, and then you can finally get your hands on this overpowered fighting style. Anyways, let's get into the abilities of this one. The Z ability is called Soaring Beast, where you dash straight into your enemy and just pummel them a butt ton of time. The X ability is called Heaven and Earth and has 2 different versions. For the first one, you shoot out a small projectile that deals damage to your enemy. For the second one, you start hitting the air around you, dealing a butt ton of damage to everything you're standing next to. Then we got the C ability, and this one is called 6th Realm Gun. This one you just dash into an enemy, hit them, and send them flying. Overall, this fighting style is really hard to miss. It has amazing combo potential, literally the best out of any fighting style in the whole game. It also has incredibly high damage and amazing stuns. And for the cons, you already know what I'm gonna say. It's just incredibly difficult to get. Anyways, let's move on to the next fighting style called Sanguine Art. This is actually the latest fighting style to be added to the whole game. And the way you get this is actually pretty unique. You don't need a mastery requirement like a bunch of the previous ones. For this, you need the Leviathan Heart. You can get that by obviously defeating the Leviathan boss. Once you do that, you have to get a total of 20 Demonic Wisp, 20 Vampire Fangs, 2 Dark Fragments, and once you give that to the Shafi NPC, you pay them 5 million bellies as well as 5,000 fragments, then you can finally get the fighting style. Anyways, let's get into the abilities. The normal attack of this fighting style is actually pretty cool. It's similar to the Electric Claw fighting style where you just shoot a bunch of aura, just deal damage to whatever you're clicking at. The Z ability is called Bloodbane Drain, where you dash into your enemy and just hit them with a bunch of attacks. The X ability is called Scarlet Tear, where you just shoot out a huge sword projectile similar to the Saber Sword. The C ability ability is called Devourer of Worlds, where you just shoot out a bunch of orbs that deal damage to your enemies. The good things about this fighting style is all of its moves can hit CBs and all of its moves can break instincts, which gives it pretty good combo potential. But overall, it's a really good fighting style, and if you get your hands on this, then I recommend using it. That's pretty much it.